Dawn broke over the sprawling wheat fields of Ironwood Valley, where the golden Montana sky seemed to promise peace. But to Marcus Hale, the stillness felt like a warning. A U.S. Army Ranger veteran scarred by combat, he'd traded deployments for tractors when he returned home. He rose before the sun, sweeping the dew from the barn doors as the crisp mountain air stung his lungs. His loyal black lab, Shadow, padding at his heels, mirrored his tension. Marcus had sensed shadows in the valley long before the first gate swung open. Someone was watching, and this morning, those watchers made their move. Across the lane, the Henderson farm lay empty, abandoned overnight. Only tire tracks marred the mud, leading toward the highway. Marcus recognized the pattern of SUVs. Dark-tinted windows, heavy treads, vehicle hulks built for rough terrain. They didn't belong in this quiet corner of Montana. His jaw clenched at the memory of his last tour, where ambushes triggered at dawn and bullets chased soldiers through olive groves. He would not let history repeat itself here. Shadow bared her teeth at the silent machines parked beside the barn, growling low in her throat. Marcus knelt, pressing a hand to her head. "Stay sharp," he whispered. He strode to the barn's hidden door, lifting the latch with practiced ease. Foes in both Iraq and Afghanistan had underestimated him once. He refused complacency now. Beneath the false floorboard lay the weapons he'd hoped never to draw again. An M4 carbine fitted with a suppressor, stacked magazines, satellite-grade comms gear, and a cache of satchel charges. For 30 years he'd planned for the worst, back when he believed planning for war would stay on the training field. Now, those years of vigilance weighed heavy on his shoulders. His gloved fingers brushed the cold metal of the rifle. He inhaled, the scent of oil and steel grounding him. A beep from his encrypted phone jolted Marcus back to the moment. Lieutenant Carla Jennings, his old mortar platoon mate, had sent word. "They're moving fast. 5 farms taken in 2 weeks. Suspect cartel involvement, support en route." He tapped the screen, eyes narrowing. The Mexican cartel had learned the hard way that fear and intimidation bought obedience in many places, but this valley was different. Here, they would find warriors in disguise. He typed back a single word. "Ready." Shadow's ears pricked as engines rumbled above. Marcus slipped into the shadows beyond the barn door, becoming that same phantom the cartel had never known. Marcus Hale stepped onto the dew-soaked field before sunrise, the chill Montana air biting through his worn leather jacket. His rifle slung low across his back, he scanned the horizon where rolling hills met the pale dawn. Once an Army Ranger, he'd sworn off combat, replacing it with tractors and livestock, until the Mexican cartel began moving into Ironwood Valley. His mind replayed ghost stories of ambushes in Kandahar, and he knew the same deadly game was unfolding here. Shadow, his black Labrador, padded beside him, nose to the ground. Marcus knelt to examine fresh tire tracks crisscrossing the mud. Tracks too deep, too heavy for local pickups. He traced their path toward the Henderson farm, now ominously silent. The ranchers had vanished overnight, leaving fields and barns empty. Every fiber of his veteran instinct screamed, "Prepared ambush." He rose, jaw tight, and whistled. His signal for Shadow to fall back, stay out of sight. He ducked behind a corral post, heart thudding. 3 black SUVs rolled past, tinted windows reflecting the pale light. 4 well-dressed men in tailored suits emerged, scanning the landscape like hunters eyeing prey. The cartel's investment group had come to coerce, not to buy. Marcus tightened his grip on the M4 at his side, recalling the suppressed cracks of his rifle from years before. They didn't know he was here. Yet, by midday, Marcus had summoned his old platoon. Sykes the sniper, Chen the demolitions expert, Riley the comm specialist, and Vega the medic. Each arrived via back roads, caravan of unassuming pickups loaded with concealed gear. They met in Marcus's barn, once cluttered with hay, now a command post festooned with maps, surveillance monitors, and stackable crates of ammunition. The air smelled of oil and determination. After decades apart, old bonds snapped back into place. On the monitor, the SUVs reappeared, this time circling his property line. "Recon," whispered Sykes, peering through high-powered scopes. "They'll hit us before dusk." Chen laid out satchel charges beneath the barn's exterior wall, while Riley linked encrypted radios. Vega organized medical kits, tourniquets, bandages, morphine. Marcus walked each teammate through the plan. Funnel the cartel into kill zones, disable their vehicles, capture key lieutenants, then hand them over to authorities. "Precision over power," he said, echoing his ranger creed. As twilight bled into night, the first wave rolled in. 20 cartel enforcers, automatic rifles slung and armor gleaming. Marcus held his breath. At his signal, Chen detonated charges under the gravel road. A deafening roar and airborne dirt sent the lead SUVs cartwheeling. In the chaos, Sykes' rifle barked, dropping 2 men before they could regroup. Marcus darted between cover, suppressed shots, ending threats in the shadows. Vega and Riley secured prisoners while Marcus disarmed the last lieutenant, pressing cold steel against his temple. "Tell your bosses Montana isn't for sale." By midnight, local deputies arrived to witness burning hulks and captured cartel foot soldiers. Marcus slipped into the shadows as Sykes radioed. "Area secure." Shadow padded out, tail wagging. He'd stood guard quietly through the firefight. Marcus knelt beside her, whispering, "Good girl." But the cartel would not end its campaign so easily. This was only a warning. And Marcus Hale, once a ranger, now a guardian of home soil, would ensure they learned that lesson well. At first light, Marcus walked the perimeter, assessing the damage from last night's ambush. Burned-out SUVs smoldered alongside mangled metal, their tires shredded and frames twisted. Cartel footprints and shell casings littered the ground like metallic confetti. Vega the medic hovered nearby, cleaning a small graze on Riley's forearm, a souvenir from Sykes' precise crossfire. Though bruised and shaken, the team moved with professional calm. Local deputies refused Marcus's attempts to offer testimony, nodding politely before retreating. The valley's silence felt deceptive. Marcus knew the cartel would retaliate. He tapped his comms earpiece. "All units, status check. We can't rest on one victory." Furious determination replaced fatigue. An encrypted feed crackled on Riley's tablet. The cartel boss, El Tigre Serrano, roared orders through a translator's voice. He'd imported ex-Special Forces mercenaries, former Fuerzas Especiales from Mexico, hardened by years of narco conflicts. They would not rely on intimidation alone. They intended to crush Marcus's resistance. Heavy trucks laden with armor-piercing rounds and night vision equipment, plus aerial drones armed with thermal cameras, were en route. Riley tapped commands, jamming incoming telemetry while patching in real-time drone feeds for their advantage. Marcus studied the shadowy outlines on the screen. "They'll strike at multiple points simultaneously," he muttered. "We need to be faster." Night fell again with heavy clouds cloaking the moon. Marcus led Sykes and Chen to the western ridge, their silhouettes barely visible against the sky. Sykes calibrated his .300 Winchester Magnum, scanning the valley floor while Chen laid tripwire-triggered charges along likely approach routes. Every footstep echoed in Marcus's mind, quiet as a whisper, deadly as a bullet. Back at base, Riley monitored radio chatter, isolating hostile frequencies and feeding intel through encrypted channels. Vega positioned a medic station within the root cellar, lit only by red-filtered lights. Marcus radioed coordinates. "Hold until they split their forces." The hush of anticipation stretched taut, like a bowstring before release. They were ready. At 0200 hours, the hills erupted with sound. TPS trucks mounted .50 caliber machine guns, and armored SUVs clawed over the ridgeline. Thermal beams swept across Marcus's position. He signaled Sykes, "Fire." A single round cut through the lead vehicle's engine block, flaming it instantly. Chen's secondary charges blasted nearby cover, scattering unsuspecting gunmen into Marcus's line of sight. Riley's jamming gear crackled, collapsing drone comms. Shouts in Spanish mixed with gunfire, muttered curses at invisible enemies. Vega moved swiftly, patching chest wounds under the dim light. Marcus pressed forward through concussive blasts, heart pounding. Each moment felt like a lifetime. They fought not just for land, but for the soul of the valley. By 0300 hours, Marcus's team had repelled 2 simultaneous attacks. 4 cartel vehicles lay disabled. 18 men lay bound. El Tigre's fury was palpable on intercepted channels, threats to raze the valley if he did not receive vengeance. Marcus contacted local law enforcement. "We have prisoners and intel linking them to dozens of violent crimes. Send SWAT to harvest evidence." Deputy Harper's voice trembled with awe and fear. "On our way, sir." As distant sirens wailed, Marcus surveyed the horizon. Smoke plumes curled like dark fingers. He holstered his rifle momentarily, locking eyes with Shadow. The valley had survived its first test, but the real storm was yet to come. As dawn's light crept across Ironwood Valley, Marcus convened his team for a briefing by the charred barn. Exhaustion tugged at their limbs, yet their eyes burned with resolve. Sykes reviewed thermal scans. Reinforcements, 20 more armored units, were converging from the south. Chen distributed newly primed charges. Vega packed field kits with extra blood plasma. Riley patched in satellite uplinks for Overwatch. Marcus spoke low but clear. "Tonight they'll test us again. We hold, we adapt, and we remind them why we're Rangers, veterans of wars they can't imagine. This valley isn't just farmland. It's home, and we protect it at all costs." Silence answered him, the promise of steel and solidarity. Marcus watched the sun sink behind jagged peaks as he illuminated the valley with infrared optics. The cartel's third wave, an armored convoy of 10 trucks bristling with .50 cal turrets and mounted grenade launchers, rolled in from the north. He keyed his mic. "Positions!" From concealed perches, Sykes, Chen, Riley, and Vega confirmed readiness. Shadow lay silent at his side, ears twitching. The heavy vehicles rumbled closer, oblivious to the tripwires strung beneath. Marcus inhaled the crisp air, vision narrowing with focus. Tonight, Ironwood Valley would be a crucible. At his signal, sparks crackled as Chen triggered dual charges under the convoy's lead truck. Steel twisted and glass shattered as the vehicle erupted, its turret flung skyward in a gout of flame. Sykes' rifle barked once, twice, that deadly duet cutting down the escort team rushing to assess the damage. Riley's electronic countermeasures pulsed through the valley, scrambling drone feeds and radio calls for backup. Vega dashed between shadow and wreckage, dragging wounded foot soldiers into safety zones and applying tourniquets under mortar fire. Marcus slipped forward, the suppressed thump of his M4 the silent oath of a ranger recalling old battlefields. The cartel's response was immediate. Tracer rounds stitched lines of red through the darkness, cutting across Marcus's planned fallback routes. He pivoted on gravel, returning fire from hip, discarding speed for precision. A grenade rolled past, the blast tipping his balance, but he crumbled low, eyes locked on the nearest gunner. Shadow darted out to intercept an enemy combatant inching toward Marcus's rear, teeth flashing in moonlight. Vega shouted coordinates as medevac drones buzzed overhead, their lights clipped by Riley's jammers. The valley felt alive with echoes of war, each flash of muzzle fire mirroring memories of nights in Kandahar and Fallujah. By 22:30 hours, half the convoy lay disabled. 17 cartel fighters lay bound, groaning beneath Chen's nylon ties. But El Tigre Serrano had one final gambit. High-altitude drones armed with mini-rockets, programmed to strike command nodes. Riley counterhacked, injecting false waypoint data. On remote screens, thermal blips blinked off course, chasing ghosts across frozen fields. Marcus rounded up his team in the barn's interior, heart pounding. "They think they can break our command," he said. "Let's teach them ironwood ceilings are made of steel. Chen?" A silent nod, and the demolitions expert limped away to ready the barn's hidden roof charges. The valley shuddered with twin blasts as wires beneath the roof ignited. Half the ceiling peeled back, revealing a tangle of steel girders reinforced with satchel charges. Above, the cartel's drones swooped in, rockets primed. Marcus keyed his mic. Now. Chen's secondary triggers erupted, sending a shockwave upward that ripped through the nearest drone, shredding rotors. Vega and Riley rushed to arm overloaded flashbangs, launching them from the rooftop gap. Blinding light and ear-splitting concussion waves sent the remaining drones careening into the mountainside. Below, Sykes and Marcus mopped up the last fighters as dawn bled into the sky. Marcus holstered his rifle, gaze steady. "Ironwood stands," he whispered, even as distant sirens signaled a new day and new challenges ahead. As sunlight broke across Ironwood Valley, the charred wreckage of cartel vehicles lay silent under morning fog. Local law enforcement, FBI, and ATF agents swarmed the perimeter, combing through debris and interrogating prisoners. Marcus observed from the barn's loft, shadow at his side, as a silver SUV rolled in bearing the familiar face of Deputy Harper. They respected his covert operation but insisted on official statements. Marcus nodded curtly, delivering precise reports of non-lethal wounds, explosives caches, and satellite intercepts. Each word weighed heavy. Politics and jurisdiction threatened to unravel his defensive network. He ended the briefing with a warning. El Tigre will not back down. That night, Marcus convened his team in the Cellar's command center. Riley patched in live satellite feeds. Movement along the eastern ridge. 60 cartel operators in full battle gear. Intelligence indicated they'd kidnapped Marta and Luis Delgado, local homesteaders who'd refused to sell. The cartel used them as human shields, parading them at convoy lead like trophies. Fury coursed through Marcus's veins. Personal vendetta sharpened his focus. He drew a breath and mapped a rescue. Sykes would take overwatch. Chen and Vega would flank the convoy, Riley would jam external comms, and Marcus would breach last. No one leaves Delgado Homestead alive except the innocent. Under a slate-gray sky, they struck at midnight. Marcus led the charge, scaling the wooden fence as Sykes' silenced rifle bit through starless darkness. Chen's satchel charges detonated at the convoy's rear, blocking retreat, while Vega darted in to extract Marta, her tears glimmering in flashlight beam. Bullets kicked up earth. Ring of Steel sang. Riley's jamming pulses severed the cartel's comms grid, turning them into disoriented targets. A single burst from Marcus's M4 pinned down Serrano's lieutenant, allowing Sykes to drop him with a heart-lung shot. Moments later, Marta and Luis were free, whispering gratitude even as distant engines warned of a secondary assault. Marcus nodded. The storm wasn't over. Serrano's second wave crashed through Ironwood Valley's western pass before sunrise. Their vehicles, armed with mounted grenade launchers, rolled over makeshift barricades. Marcus rallied the homesteaders, farmhands, mechanics, and teachers, arming them with rifles from the initial cache. Under his direction, civilians manned sniper glades and bait positions, firing warning shots that echoed like thunder. Sykes coached a trembling schoolteacher through long-range firing, while Chen repurposed fertilizer sacks into improvised explosive devices. Vega taught first aid over the roar of a war, ensuring each civilian paramedic stood ready. Riley maintained drone surveillance, guiding each shot. The valley had become an army of everyday heroes, united against merciless invaders. As dawn painted the peaks in blood-orange hues, Marcus confronted Serrano in the valley's abandoned grain silo. The cartel boss, furious and outnumbered, leveled a pistol at his captives. Two elderly ranchers, its barrel trembling. Marcus stepped forward, voice like thunder. "Drop it!" Sykes' rifle appeared beside Serrano's head, safety off. Tears streamed down the old men's faces as the boss faltered. then yielded. Chains clanked as Serrano was bound and informed he'd be turned over to federal authorities. The cartel's reign of terror had ended. Marcus released his breath, catching Shadow's approving nudge. Ironwood Valley was safe once more, but the specter of violence lingered on the wind. By mid-morning, Ironwood Valley bore the scars of warfare, but pulsed with cautious optimism. The community gathered to repair barns, mend fences, and bury the fallen. Rangers and farmers worked side by side, welding twisted girders and rewiring communications arrays. Under Marcus's watchful gaze, the barn's interior transformed back into a heaving stack of hay and tools. Shadow padded among the workers, her muzzle dusted with sawdust. Yet beneath every hammer strike and shared joke, Marcus felt the unsettling hum of distant engines and whispered rumors that Serrano's network stretched further than anticipated. The valley had won a battle, but the war was far from over. Late that afternoon, FBI Special Agent Carla Jennings arrived unannounced, her badge glinting in the waning sun. She carried grim news. An internal investigation had uncovered discrepancies in official reports. Chains of custody had broken, and evidence lockers had been tampered with. Whispers pointed to a corrupt deputy leaking intel to Serrano's lieutenants. Marcus's jaw tightened as Jennings slid a flash drive across the workbench, intercepted messages pinpointing payments and codes. He realized that if the mole remained unchecked, their hard-won sanctuary would collapse. Carla offered her support. She'd shield their operation within federal channels, but warned that trust would be their most precious and most fragile commodity. That evening, Marcus and Sykes retraced the chain of custody trail through the sheriff's precinct, moving in darkness like ghosts. Riley provided live audio intercepts over earpiece, guiding them to Deputy Connors's office, where surveillance footage revealed clandestine meetings with Serrano's couriers. Chen and Vega lay in wait in the parking garage, ready to intercept any flight attempt. At 22:30 hours, Connors emerged, carrying a duffel bag loaded with sensitive files. Sykes's suppressed rifle cracked through the night, the bullet puncturing Connors's radio and knees in a single, silent shot. Chen secured the deputy while Vega assured the trembling courier he would survive, just not before telling everything he knew. The mole had been silenced, but at what cost? Word of the mole's exposure rippled through Ironwood Valley like wildfire. Rumors swirled that the DEA and ATF planned raids on every precinct, but Marcus knew they needed to control the narrative. He summoned a town meeting under the old silo, speaking plainly. Cartel sympathizers had infiltrated law enforcement, but the community's resolve had exposed them. He handed Captain Ramirez, the local sheriff, a dossier of evidence and urged coordinated raids at first light. Residents nodded in grim agreement, volunteers stepping forward to assist. As Shadow trotted patrol rounds on the silo's ramparts, Marcus realized that defense meant more than rifles. It required unity in law and trust among neighbors. No one else would betray them again. As dawn approached, the valley prepared for coordinated law enforcement raids. Marcus stood by the gravel road, vest ablaze with bulletproof plates, watching SWAT teams move into position. Behind him, Sykes set up sniper overwatch, and Chen primed secondary demolition points as failsafe. But a sudden flash on Riley's makeshift laptop triggered alarm. Encrypted chatter on cartel channels, multiple convoys converging from the west and south. They were sending reinforcements, not for vengeance alone, but to reclaim the valley before federal truncheons could clear the streets. Marcus's heart thundered. He keyed his mic. Hold till I count 3. In that charged moment before battle, every life, every bond, would be tested anew. 1. As dawn's pale light crept across the valley, federal SWAT teams and local deputies swept through Ironwood's north ridgeline, executing simultaneous raids on suspected cartel cells. Flashbangs shattered the morning calm, and steel-clad officers fanned out, securing barns and clearing out hidden caches. Marcus watched from his lookout, his vest still warm from the night's vigil, as Riley's jamming grid forced enemy radios silent. But just as the first handcuffs clicked shut, heavy thumps echoed on 3 fronts. Cartel reinforcements, 2 armored convoys in full battle dress, had breached the valley's southern and western perimeters. The morning that promised justice threatened to erupt into all-out war. Marcus sprinted to the mobile command rig where Sykes relayed drone feeds. "They're splitting into squads," Sykes reported, voice tight. Each convoy fanned out, seeking to encircle the valley's central farms. Chen and Vega readied field demolitions at choke points, wire-triggered IEDs concealed beneath irrigation ditches and barn floors. Meanwhile, Marcus dispatched civilian spotters to guide detachments into ambush funnels. Even as armored vehicles closed in, everyday farmers, armed with rifles and driven by defiance, took their places behind fences and grain silos. It was no longer just a battle of weapons, but of wills. By mid-morning, the first armored truck rumbled over a sabotaged bridge and crashed through a hidden explosive trap. Walls of rain-soaked earth swallowed half its wheels, trapping it in the mud. Sykes' suppressed rifle ended the driver's struggle before he could radio backup. Elsewhere, Chen's charges collapsed barns onto enemy gun emplacements, forcing squads into open fields. The valley shook with volleyed rifle fire, punctuated by the whine of grenade launchers. Marcus moved fluidly between firefights, administering cover and returning fire in equal measure. Every ambush was textbook precision, an old ranger's legacy resurrected in Montana soil. At the Delgado homestead, the cartel's lieutenant tried using hostages as shields, but Vega and a team of armed farmers flanked him, rallying to the call of "Stand down now." Under Marcus's direction, civilians set up medevac zones, stabilizing wounded cartel fighters without cruelty. Riley hijacked enemy feed to broadcast their own propaganda. Images of farmers guarding children, not trophies. The shift in optics rattled the invaders. Once fearing collateral damage, they now hesitated. That pause gave Marcus the chance to storm the silo tower, disarming Sargento Ruiz in brutal close-quarters combat. When the rifle fell from his grasp, his men surrendered. As twilight approached, the valley's defenders converged for a final push. Marcus, blood and grime streaking his face, radioed a ceasefire. "Enough lives lost," he declared. The cartel convoys, battered and broken, limped back toward the highways, abandoning burnt vehicles and wounded comrades. Law enforcement moved in, securing evidence and prisoners as farmers tended fields scarred by combat. Shadow emerged from the barn's shadow, nuzzling Marcus's hand. He exhaled, tension finally ebbing. The valley stood undefeated, for now. But beyond the horizon, whispers of a new cartel alliance stirred the Montana wind, promising the next clash was yet to come. Marcus eased down the dirt road toward Ironwood's town hall, Shadow trotting at his side. The valley had limped back to normalcy, barns repaired, crops replanted, but a chill hung in the air. Councilor Alvarez, once outspoken against cartel seizure, had abruptly resigned, citing personal reasons. Whispers swirled of secret bank transfers and forged deeds. Inside the hall, FBI Special Agent Jennings awaited him with a file stamped urgent. Marcus flipped it open to reveal ledgers showing 6-figure payments funneled to Alvarez's account. Each line a betrayal. He met Jennings's gaze. "The mole runs deeper than we thought." That afternoon, an eager local reporter named Celia Morris arrived, notebook in hand. She praised Marcus's heroic defense for a human interest piece. But Riley, monitoring newsroom chatter, flagged Celia as a known cartel mouthpiece in Mexico. As she peppered Marcus with softball questions, Marcus noted her eyes flicking toward his command van and maps pinned to plywood. Offering a tour of evidence artifacts, he led her past booby-trapped entrances and staged key documents, decoys that suggested a defunct militia. By the time Celia left, she carried nothing but faulty intel. Marcus radioed Riley. "She'll report ghosts, and we'll control the haunting." Late that night, Riley's workstation crackled with intercepted traffic. Encrypted bursts traced back to one of their civilian spotters, Ridgeback rancher Tom Delgado. Riley decrypted enough to reveal coordinates for asset drop points along the North Ridge. Marcus swallowed bile. Tom had always been dependable. He assembled Sykes and Vega for a silent approach to Delgado's barn. Under red-filtered lights, they found stacked crates labeled in Spanish, filled with ammunition and comm scramblers. Tom emerged, hands raised, tears glistening. "They threatened my brother," he choked. "I had no choice." Marcus's hand hovered over his pistol, the weight of justice heavy in his palm. After extracting a full confession under Carla's watch, they learned of a broader conspiracy. El Tigre Serrano had brokered an alliance with a domestic extremist group, planning to use Ironwood as a staging ground for attacks on federal installations. The revelation shattered their sense of security. The valley's defense had to expand beyond fields and fences. Back in the barn, Marcus laid out new orders. Intercept coalition arms shipments at the abandoned mill on the East Ridge, dig out sleeper cells in neighboring towns, and rally regional law enforcement under a unified task force. No more half measures. By dawn, Marcus's team assembled at the mill, Sykes on overwatch, Riley jamming transmissions, Chen primed to breach reinforced doors, and Vega ready to treat casualties. Shadow sat alert beside him, her breath a plume in the cold air. Marcus raised his voice over the wind-whispered valley. "Today we fight far from home, to cut this alliance at its root before it chokes our valley." Hooves of nervous horses and distant drone buzz filled the void. He glanced at his friends, each hardened by combat, yet driven by home and honor. "Move out," he ordered. As the sun crested the ridge, Ironwood's ghostly defenders vanished into shadow, heading toward the fiercest fight yet. Marcus crept through the skeletal remains of the old Cedar Creek mill as pale dawn light filtered through shattered windows. Rusting gears and broken conveyor belts lay strewn like the bones of a forgotten giant. His team assembled behind him. Sykes settled into a second-story shaft with his sniper rifle trained on the south entrance. Chen pressed a pack of shaped charges against the mill's reinforced doors. Riley hunkered by his laptop, antenna raised to jam any outgoing signals. Vega checked his medkit for fresh bandages. Even Shadow wore an anxious expression, senses humming with anticipation. "This is it," Marcus whispered. "Cut their supplies here and their alliance collapses." 2 minutes later, the rumble of diesel engines announced their arrival. From the darkness spilled half a dozen flatbeds, each guarded by 6 armed extremists in black Kevlar vests, faces hidden behind balaclavas. They disembarked crates stamped with Cartel insignia, advanced assault rifles, drone controllers, night vision goggles. One man barked in Spanish, yanking open the mill's side doors. Riley's fingers flew across keys. "Jamming now." Radios sputtered into static, and the extremists froze, heads swiveling. Marcus raised his hand. Chen dropped the charges. 2 precise detonations boomed, sealing both entrances in a cloud of sparks and metal shards. The attackers realized too late they'd trapped themselves. Chaos erupted within the mill. Sykes' round snapped through the broken rafters, striking 3 guards before they could form a line. Marcus burst through a side window, rolling into cover as Vega flung smoke grenades behind him. The acrid haze filled the air, cloaking their movements. Chen sprinted to the center platform and primed fragmentation traps, while Riley hacked the building's electrical panel, plunging them into flickering darkness. Shouts echoed in the gloom as night vision goggles fluttered off beam. "Clear left!" Marcus barked, sweeping a corner with his M4. 2 assailants slumped, felled by silent precision. Amid the mayhem, Vega found a wounded extremist crumpled beside an ammo crate. He knelt, applying a tourniquet to a bleeding leg before quietly securing the man. "Medics here," he murmured, earning a bewildered look in return. Marcus pressed on, climbing a staircase that led to the drone bay. The extremists there scrambled to activate the controller. But Riley's jamming signal pulsed again, frying the circuitry. Sparks flew as Marcus kicked the console into ruin. "No drones today," he muttered. Sykes whistled through his comm. "All positions neutralized. You've got 2 left at the main entrance." Marcus rejoined Chen at the sealed doors. With a quick nod, Chen triggered the final charges, splintering steel beams and concrete. A thunderous collapse buried the last defenders under rubble. They emerged into the early sunlight, surveying the wrecked convoy. Riley squinted at his tablet. All arms shipments accounted for. No sign of that extremist cell. Shadow barked once, then fell silent, as though sensing the moment's gravity. By mid-morning, local law enforcement and FBI bomb squads began recovering evidence from the mill's ruins. Agent Jennings approached Marcus with a nod of respect. "Intel recovered here links the extremists directly to El Tigre's network and to a planned attack on Fort Cascade," she reported. Marcus exhaled, letting relief wash over him. "They won't get the chance," he said. As vehicles rolled in to tow away, twisted flatbeds and shattered gates, he looked out across the valley, fields already beginning to glow green with new growth. Ironwood had struck at the heart of the conspiracy. Now, it was time to hunt its head. Marcus stood atop the gravel ridge overlooking the dry wash that marked the U.S.-Mexico border, dawn's first light glinting on his scope lens. Riley's tablet displayed recent intercepts. A convoy of cartel lieutenants ferrying false passports and forged documents through an unmonitored smuggling corridor. "They'll cross here in 2 hours," Riley whispered. Under his breath, Marcus recited the plan. Sykes would neutralize scouts at long range, Chen and Vega would breach the safe house, Riley would jam comms, and Marcus would extract the lead courier, whose dossiers contained coordinates to El Tigre's forward command post. Shadow padded close, tail low. Everyone knew this was their riskiest mission yet. Moving in single file, the team descended the rocky slope toward the smuggling route. Sykes settled into a sniper hide beneath twisted mesquite, binoculars trained on the border road. Marcus and Chen skirted the dry wash, boot soles kicking up dust, while Vega rechecked medical supplies. Tripwire alarms, homemade but lethal, snapped underfoot, cutting off any easy retreat. Marcus hand-signaled Chen. "There." A quartet of cartel lookouts, rifles slung casually, patrolled the corridor. At his nod, Sykes' silenced 300 round cracked once, dropping the first sentry. Within seconds, 2 more fell as Chen crept in for close-quarters takedowns, leaving only a single survivor to stammer warnings in broken English. Under cover of that chaos, Marcus and Vega stormed the adobe safe house, its walls thick with heat-baked clay. Inside, torches lit stacks of crates marked with cartel emblems. Men in fatigue scrambled for cover, but Riley's electronic warfare suite pulsed through the walls, frying radios and drones. Chen planted rapid charges at the door frame. Vega barricaded corridors to guide fleeing suspects into Marcus's aim. The firefight rang out in staccato bursts, ricochets kicking plaster from walls. Marcus moved like a shadow, each suppressed shot precise. When the smoke cleared, 3 cartel gunmen lay bound, and the safe house's owner, a lean courier named Marcos Diaz, surrendered with trembling hands. Riley and Chen sifted through the crates, uncovering data drives and bound manifests. Vega escorted a clutch of frightened migrants, abducted laborers pressed into cartel service, out to safety. Marcus hailed the courier forward. "Your boss trusts you with these coordinates. Why?" Diaz's shoulders slumped. "He underestimates you," he muttered. "He thinks this valley is a paper tiger." With that, he handed over 2 encrypted drives and dozens of ink-stained folders detailing infiltration plans for neighboring counties. Marcus thumbed through the manifest. Sleeper cells, bribe lists, assassination targets, including key federal witnesses. The scale of the conspiracy dwarfed even Serrano's ambitions. As midday sun surged, the team exfiltrated through a narrow mountain pass, talus slopes forcing single-file movement. Cartel lookouts, now alerted to their presence, fired tracer rounds that arced overhead. Marcus returned fire to pin them down. Chen's remote charges sent rockfall crashing, blocking pursuit. Shadow raced ahead, barking to warn of approaching vehicles. Vega escorted the rescued migrants, offering water and reassurance as they marched toward U.S. deputies waiting below. By the time Riley's jamming grid collapsed the cartel's drone oversight, the team had vanished into Border Patrol territory. On the ridge above, Marcus exhaled deeply. Ironwood's reach now extended beyond valleys, straight into the cartel's heart. Marcus crouched behind the concrete barrier overlooking Fort Cascade's perimeter, a former missile silo converted to a high-security training center. Riley's tablet displayed blueprints marking entry points and guard rotations. Vega checked his medkit, while Chen primed breaching charges against the south gate. Sykes adjusted his spotter scope from a neighboring ridge, scanning for security cameras and patrol drones. The wind carried faint echoes of drill commands and engine hums. "We go in as maintenance," Marcus whispered, voice low. "Once inside, we neutralize their comms tower and extract any hostages." Shadow sat motionless at his side, ears flat. A signal they all understood. This mission would decide whether Ironwood's reach could actually protect the heart of American soil. Under the cover of moonless night, the team slipped through a narrow service tunnel patched into the silo's base. Beige coveralls and fake hard hats concealed their weapons, while Riley's jamming module masked external sensors. Two security guards loitered at a checkpoint. Marcus nodded, and Chen's garrote silenced them, swift and clean. They passed through corridors of steel and echoing alarms, planting silent charges on surveillance arrays. At each corner, Vega applied pressure dressings to simulated injured placards they'd plastered on walls, part of their maintenance crew disguise. Tension crackled in every footstep. One wrong move, one unexpected patrol, could ignite a firefight that would sack the entire valley. They reached the comm tower's control room, where a half-dozen extremists and rogue soldiers monitored battlefield simulations. Sykes' rifle barked twice through the reinforced glass, dropping 2 sentries before they could react. Marcus kicked open the door as Riley's jamming surged, severing external links. Chen's charges collapsed the server racks into a ruin of sparks and steel. In the chaos, Vega dashed in to free 4 civilian technicians held at gunpoint, ushering them toward an emergency exit. Marcus confronted the tower's commander, an ex-military contractor with cartel ties, pressing his pistol to the man's temple. "Tell your bosses their fortress is breached," he growled. The commander's knees buckled as he surrendered. Alarms blared through the labyrinthine halls as rally teams rushed in. Marcus barked orders. "Fall back to extraction!" They raced through service tunnels, discarded charges, igniting to seal pursuit lanes. Outside, helicopters descended on the courtyard, their searchlights swallowed by Riley's jamming fog. Sykes' final shot disabled one drone as Chen detonated a directional blast to mask their escape. Shadow darted ahead to guide the freed technicians to safety, while Vega supported a wounded specialist on his shoulder. Marcus vaulted into the lead pickup just as serried ranks of extremists closed in. Engines roared, dust plumes rose. As they cleared the perimeter under friendly air cover, Marcus allowed himself a thin smile. Ironwood's guardians had saved the heart of the nation. Tonight, the valley's legend grew ever larger. Back at Camp Valor, the debriefing room hummed with urgency. FBI Special Agent Carla Jennings projected satellite imagery of the raised silo in Fort Cascade, overlaying it with radar tracks of unidentified chemical munitions. We intercepted chatter about a clandestine lab inside the old Valle Verde textile mill. VX nerve agent, stored in aerial drones, she summarized, voice taut. Marcus's jaw clenched as he studied the map. Valle Verde lay 80 miles south of the border, its deserted factories perfect for covert chemistry. They plan to unleash a lethal cloud over refugee camps, Jennings continued. Marcus inhaled, eyes steely. "We move tonight. No hesitation." Shadow growled softly by his boot, ready to run. By dusk, Marcus's team rendezvoused at an abandoned border sentinel post, its silent bunkers and rusted lookout towers offering a perfect staging ground. Marcus distributed camouflaged hazmat suits and gas masks, while Chen checked C4 charges attached to support beams. Riley calibrated the electronic jammer and loaded EMP grenades to disable security grids. Vega reviewed casualty triage kits and oversaw chemical decontamination chambers assembled in cargo trucks. Each team member nodded grimly as Marcus outlined the infiltration: silent entry through the west loading bay, sabotage of venomous drones, extraction of lab samples, and exfiltration to a debitherapy trailer 2 miles east. Shadow wagged her tail once, alert and ready for the midnight sprint. 5 minutes after midnight, the silhouette of the mill emerged beneath low storm clouds. Marcus slid through a broken skylight window, Shadow leaping gracefully behind him. The interior reeked of chemical solvents and moldy cotton. Corridors lined with steel drums full of yellowish liquid whispered of death. Chen and Vega followed close, spotting a squad of cartel mercenaries armed with assault rifles and tactical vests. At Marcus's cue, Chen lobbed a flashbang into the midst of the group, its strobing light and concussive blast sending men screaming. In the ensuing chaos, Sykes' suppressed sniper rounds found their marks, felling 2 guard towers. Riley's EMP grenades plunged the facility into darkness, emergency lights flickering. The firefight crackled around vats of poison, every step a potential catastrophe. Amid flickering red strobes, Marcus located the chemical control chamber, rows of valves and piping feeding drones tethered at recovery pads. He found the lead chemist hunched over a console, panic in her eyes as Riley's jammer silenced her radio link. Marcus subdued her with a non-lethal shot to the shoulder, then ordered Chen to weld shut the valve manifold. Vega defused 2 time-triggered bombs strapped to the largest vat while the chemist babbled about plans to disperse VX canisters over nearby towns. Marcus grabbed a handful of vials, snapping caps shut. "We're taking everything back," he said. Under his command, Riley uploaded a virus to fry remaining drones. As alarms screamed, the lab manager, still conscious, confessed coordinates for a second site deeper in territory. They exfiltrated down a rocky ravine as the mill's skeleton erupted in controlled explosions, Chen's charges ensuring no stray chemical residue lingered. Riley orchestrated the demolition timing to mask their retreat under thunderous blasts. Through the thicket, Vega supported the chemist-turned-convict, her hands cuffed but eyes fearful. Sykes covered the rear, picking off an enemy scout attempting pursuit. Under moonlight filtered by rain, Marcus led the convoy toward the safety of Camp Valor. At the border checkpoint, they handed over the chemist and lab data drives to ATF agents outfitted in hazmat suits. Shadow leaped into Marcus's arms, offering a wet nuzzle as dawn's first light warmed the valley, a promise that the world remained worth fighting for. By the time dawn broke on the valley, Marcus's team had barely slept. In the cavernous operations tent at Camp Valor, they gathered around a digital map flickering with red dots. Dozens of potential cartel sleeper cells hidden in dusty border towns across New Mexico. The data drives extracted from Valle Verde's chemical lab revealed more than toxins, payment ledgers for local officials, safe house blueprints, and encrypted communications pointing to civilian innocents coerced into smuggling routes. Vega, hands stained with antiseptic and exhaustion, loaded medkits with fresh morphine. Riley calibrated his portable jamming towers. Chen inspected demolition charges against corrugated steel barn doors. Shadow lay at Marcus's feet, ears alert. "No more half measures," Marcus intoned, voice low but unyielding. "We dismantle every node tonight, or we lose the valley and countless lives tomorrow." The team exchanged grim nods and checked weapons, each veteran knowing that beyond the quiet farmland lay a network of darkness that threatened every safe haven they'd built. They rolled out in 3 unmarked SUVs beneath a slate sky, slipping through early morning fog toward the first cell, an abandoned water treatment plant on the outskirts of El Cajon. Under the guise of state contractors, Marcus and Riley entered the guard shack with forged IDs, while Chen and Sykes circled wide to secure rooftop overwatch. Inside the plant's crumbling hallways, pipes dripped with rust-colored residue, evidence of cartel-run methanol extraction operations hidden behind government seals. A lone lookout, eyes darting like a cornered animal, was silenced by Marcus's gloved hand before he could radio for help. Chen set C4 charges on the main access gate while Riley's jammer killed all radio traffic within a 2-mile radius. When the first charge detonated in a muffled roar, the cartel's regional commander, codenamed La Viuda, emerged, rifle raised. A burst of flashbangs and suppressed rifle fire ended her reign in seconds, and the plant survivors were bound and collared as hostages until reinforcements arrived. Under cover of darkness, the team fanned out to 2 more locations, a cattle ranch doubling as a distribution hub and a desert motel where cartel henchmen quartered kidnapped families for ransom. In each spot, Marcus's veterans moved with lethal precision, Sykes picking off lookouts from half a mile, Vega treating bewildered hostages, Chen collapsing safe rooms into rubble, Riley intercepting phone calls meant to coordinate reinforcements. At the motel, the thrum of diesel generators and the soft cries of frightened children filled the hallways. Marcus kicked open a door to find mothers huddled in a filthy bathtub. Armed men advanced. With a single command, flashbangs ignited, and Marcus stormed in, rifle barking impossibly soft but deadly. When the dust settled, the cartel henchmen lay bound on damp carpet, and a convoy of Border Patrol vehicles screeched to a halt outside, ready to ferry survivors to safety. By 0400 hours, every marked cell lay in ruins, every cartel lieutenant cuffed and catalogued. Yet Marcus sensed a deeper current. One senior cartel strategist had slipped away, a ghost in the network promising retaliation. Back at Camp Valor, their makeshift lab analyzed recovered laptops, schematics for bioweapon dispersal drones, and an encrypted manifesto promising fire and ash for anyone daring to resist. Across the valley, sunrise gleamed off grain silos and church steeples, symbols of a community once again spared. But Marcus knew this pause would not last. He gathered his team beneath the wind-rustled flag of the old sentinel post and spoke softly, "We buy them time. We save lives. But the war isn't over until every last ghost in their machine is laid to rest. Rest up. We strike again at midnight." Shadow lifted her muzzle, tongue lolling in a pant, a silent promise that wherever darkness gathered, Ironwood's guardians would be waiting. The morning sun glared off the metal roofs of Ironwood's county fairgrounds as Marcus stood before a hastily assembled command table beneath an old oak. Riley's tablet projected thermal scans of crowds milling among carnival games and food stalls. Intelligence from local assets had intercepted a coded message. Cartel-aligned extremists planned a large-scale IED attack targeting the midday parade and livestock pavilion. Vega passed out Kevlar vests and trauma kits to volunteer deputies. Chen handed out mission briefs to farmers turned observers, each assigned a sector of the fair. Shadow prowled nearby, nose twitching at the swirl of scents, popcorn, livestock, and something metallic in the air. Marcus's voice cut through the hum of preparations. "Once the crowd thins at noon, we move. Any sign of suspicious crates or erratic behavior, we engage. Protect every soul here." By 1100 hours, the fair had settled into its restless lull. Families queued for funnel cakes, children chased balloons. 4-H exhibitors groomed pigs and showed off ponies. Under the guise of a maintenance team, Marcus and Riley patrolled the perimeter, clipboards in hand. They passed clusters of driftwood crates marked merry-go-round parts and inflatable fun equipment. Common enough, except for the reinforced steel hinges and welded seams Riley had flagged in the schematics. Chen and Sykes melted into the crowd. Chen as a cotton candy vendor, Sykes as a carnival photographer, camera lens trained on suspicious pockets and the backs of unmarked vans. Vega set up a mobile triage station near the petting zoo, his medic's eye scanning every movement. Every heartbeat thrummed with anticipation and dread, One false move would unleash carnage. At 11:45, Vega radioed an alert. A group of 3 men in dark jackets were lingering near the livestock tents, crates at their feet. Their gait betrayed nerves, glancing over shoulders, shifting weight, speaking in hushed Spanish. Marcus signaled Chen, already brewing cotton candy, to cut them off at the cattle pens. As the herd snorted and stamped, Chen dropped his vendor facade, ripping open a crate to reveal PVC piping and wires. The gruff laughter of an older extremist turned to shock. Chen's compact rifle barked once, and the first man crumpled. Sykes snapped photos from behind a Ferris wheel cart, each shot a silent promise of precision. The other 2 suspects tried to flee under stampeding calves, but Vega and local deputies moved in, cutting them off before chaos blossomed. With the immediate threat neutralized, Marcus ordered a full cordon. Riley's jamming grid spiked, silencing remote detonator channels. Sykes took overwatch on a rooftop adjacent to the parade route, his rifle trained on potential vehicle-borne threats. As the marching band entered view, Marcus strode onto the stage, clearing dangling microphones to rig a covert sensor array. He attached a shock injector to the parade's PA system wires, enough to disable any attempt to use it as a broadcast trigger. Chen and Vega swept the concession stands, prying open loaded coolers and vending machines for hidden explosive liners. By 12:15, the fair was declared secure. No detonation, no panic, only a suspension of disbelief as families cheered at the band's next tune, unaware of the nightmare that nearly was. That evening, as carnival lights flickered and the deep bass note of a rock band throbbed over speakers, Marcus convened his team in a commandeered livestock trailer. The captured suspects had spilled details of a coordinated attack on neighboring county seats, simultaneous bombings at school graduations and town hall meetings. The scale staggered them. Dozens of targets lined up by cartel-paid extremist cells. Riley uploaded maps of planned strike locations. Vega updated casualty projections. Chen recalibrated demolition plans to preempt those threats. Sykes marked sniper positions for overwatch. Marcus's eyes hardened as he addressed the crew. "Tonight we saved lives. Tomorrow we strike at the heart of this network. No more shadows. We take the battle to them." Shadow circled his boots, silent resolve echoing her master's vow. Under a bruised pre-dawn sky, Marcus convened his team at Camp Valor's forward operations tent. Riley's tablet displayed a grid of red target icons outlining the cartel's coordinated extremist strikes slated for dawn. Graduation ceremonies, town halls, parish churches. A network of sleeper cells lay hidden behind innocuous facades, retirement homes, community centers, and isolated grain silos. Vega distributed portable trauma kits and gas canisters as medevac helicopters idled nearby. Sykes and Chen reviewed synchronized insertion routes, airdropped fast ropes, silent landings by Blackhawks, and ground teams rolling in under the cover of early morning fog. Shadow paced the tent's perimeter, alert to every whisper of wind. "We hit all 6 targets simultaneously," Marcus declared, voice steel. "We break the network tonight, or more lives will be lost." By 0415 hours, 2 Blackhawks cleaved through mist above the western corridor, lowering Marcus, Riley, and 2 local rangers onto the roof of Tulia Grove Retirement Home. Inside, armed extremists hustled residents toward locked common rooms. Sykes, perched on an adjacent rooftop, picked off roof-mounted sentries as Chen breached a skylight with discreet charges. Marcus led the hallway dash, rifle suppressed, catching 2 extremists by surprise and disarming their assault rifles. Vega followed, calming panicked elders and guiding them to safety zones. Riley severed the facility's external comms and looped CCTV feeds, ensuring no silent alarms could be triggered. By 0430, the first target lay secured. 3 prisoners bound, residents unharmed. As that operation concluded, Marcus pivoted to the next strike, a remote grain silo outside Ridgecrest. Under Riley's jamming coverage, Chen and a detachment of farmers-turned-snipers infiltrated the access tower, cutting power lines to disable external floodlights. Inside, masked gunmen arranged improvised bombs among the grain bins. Sykes's suppressed rifle rounds shredded their ranks, careful not to ignite dust clouds that could trigger an explosion. Marcus and Vega moved in tandem, Vega securing hostages, farmhands coerced into service, and Marcus methodically sweeping each corridor. Within 10 minutes, the blast positions lay neutralized, equipment rigged to self-destruct upon any unauthorized tampering. The second target fell under Ironwood's silent onslaught. Meanwhile, at 3 simultaneous sites, a county graduation ceremony, a town hall meeting in El Bosque, and a midnight mass in San Pueblo, local deputies, armed with intelligence packets delivered by Riley's encrypted uplinks, fanned out to round up cartel collaborators. Under the ruse of precautionary lockdowns, deputies impressed community volunteers into cordoning off streets, guiding crowds away from danger zones. At each site, Marcus's intel led them to planted explosives concealed in stage props, HVAC ducts, and church pews. Chen's demolition team backfilled circuits with false detonators, leaving the bombs inert but convincingly present. The result, panicked extremist cells surrendered at every location, believing their carefully timed attacks had been compromised. By sunrise, as the orange glow crept across Ironwood's fields, the team reconvened at Camp Valor's landing zone. Shadow appeared first, silhouetted against landed Blackhawks, then each veteran emerged, some shaken, all victorious. Marcus reviewed casualty reports. 0 civilian lives lost, 48 extremists captured, multiple high-value cartel envoys among them. Vega's triage logs detailed only minor injuries to hostages, thanks to the team's precision. Riley uploaded surveillance footage to federal databases, ensuring every conspirator would face justice. Sykes cleaned his rifle as Chen packed explosives for the next mission. Marcus looked across his team, brothers and sisters in arms hardened by border wars, now guardians of home soil. "Tonight we broke their network," he said. "Tomorrow we finish the job." Under cover of dusk, Marcus convened his team in the reinforced briefing shelter at Camp Valor. Riley unfurled satellite overlays of Ciudad Juarez, marking the cartel's fortified command compound, a walled hacienda ringed with guard towers, motion sensors, and sniper nests. Agent Jennings had secured discreet diplomatic observer status for them under a joint U.S.-Mexican task force, buying a 30-minute window to infiltrate before border authorities noticed. Marcus distributed forged credentials, UN weapons inspectors, complete with sealed manifests. Chen checked breaching charges in Kevlar pouches. Vega loaded chemical neutralization sprays. Sykes and Riley saboted external surveillance feeds. Shadow, fitted with a reflective harness, lay alert beside the convoy of unmarked SUVs. "Tonight, we cut the head from the beast," Marcus intoned, eyes steeled. Crossing the Rio Grande under Riley's jamming umbrella, the team entered Juarez on dusty back roads. At the compound's guard gate, Marcus and Vega presented their credentials to 2 wary sentries. Sykes, concealed on the rooftop overhead, watched through thermal optics as Riley looped falsified biometric data into the guard's scanners. When the gate clicked open, they slipped inside like whispers. Chen and Marcus split to seal the courtyard entrances with timed charges, while Vega guided local informants, coerced cartel accountants, down subterranean corridors beneath a false floorboard. Each step echoed their mission: secure the inner sanctum and capture the cartel's leadership before alarms could sound. At exactly 22:30 hours, Chen detonated charges on the courtyard gates, and Sykes's suppressed rifle barked twice, felling 2 tower guards. Marcus led a breach team through the servants' entrance, rifles raised and flashbangs primed. The grand foyer erupted in confusion. Masked sentinels scrambled as hot steel flashes lit ancient stone walls. Vega hurried to secure hostages, wives and children sheltered in a back room, while Riley jammed external comms, ensuring no reinforcements could call for help. Marcus stormed the inner office where El Tigre Serrano sat at a mahogany desk, eyes wide at the sudden onslaught. With a single command, the cartel boss's pistol clattered to the floor, and Serrano rose, hands shaking, as Marcus pressed his badge. "You're under arrest." By midnight, the hacienda lay secured. Sentries lay bound at every choke point. Hostages trembled but were unharmed. Riley downloaded the compound's encrypted servers, ledgers of international smuggling routes and bribe payments to corrupt officials, onto titanium drives. Vega administered quick physicals to the freed families, ensuring no chemical or physical injuries remained. Chen planted discreet charges to collapse surveillance towers on extraction, while Sykes covered their retreat from rooftop perches. At the northern gate, Mexican military liaisons arrived under Jennings's flag of authority to process Serrano's surrender. Marcus exhaled, meeting Shadow's expectant gaze. The lion's den had fallen silent, and the valley's shadow war had struck its greatest blow yet. Marcus watched the dawn light creep over the Rio Grande as El Tigre Serrano, now shackled and silent, was loaded into an armored vehicle destined for federal custody. Behind him, Mexican military liaisons sealed the hacienda gates, while Riley archived the final encrypted files onto impervious drives. The compound, once humming with illicit power, stood eerily quiet beneath swirling dust. Vega checked in on freed hostages, now escorted by UN peacekeepers, while Chen wired demolition charges set to collapse the surveillance towers at first light. Sykes surveyed the perimeter from the highest guard tower, sniper rifle cradled but unused. Shadow padded at Marcus's heels, tail wagging softly. "This," Marcus murmured, eyes on the sunrise, "is how we end it. Precision, not vengeance." Yet as the team regrouped in the hacienda courtyard, Riley's tablet ignited with a fresh alert. A network of forged passports and financial transfers pointed to a hidden council of cartel lieutenants meeting in Chihuahua City at an abandoned convent. Though Serrano lay behind bars, his subordinates, known as La Junta, had convened to appoint a new warlord and retaliate. Marcus clenched his jaw. This final conclave, if left unchecked, would reignite the cartel's bloodlust across both nations. He turned to Agent Jennings, who nodded. The U.S.-Mexican task force would green-light a joint operation. "We move at dusk," Marcus declared. "No half measures this time." Back at Camp Valor's forward operations slums, Marcus's veterans prepared for the mission's culminating strike. Riley uploaded the convent's blueprints to everyone's tablets. Sykes rehearsed sniper positions for 5-minute-long overwatch. Chen loaded precision charges for the convent's fortified walls. Vega organized medical evac points for civilians caught in the crossfire. Even Shadow's harness bore extra pouches for flashbangs and med packs. Under a blood-orange sky, the convoy snaked south. Unmarked SUVs flanked by Mexican federal SUVs, Black Ops armored transports, and a single U.S. drone overhead. The air crackled with tension as they crossed the state line. This was the final trap, and failure would mean Serrano's legacy lived on. At 1900 hours, Marcus's team surrounded the convent. Sykes perched in a bell tower with night vision optics. Riley jammed all external and internal frequencies. Chen and Vega sealed hidden escape tunnels with silent demolitions. Marcus and a joint strike team breached the front gates with explosive charges timed to M4 bursts. Inside, hooded figures gasped as muzzle flashes lit candlelit halls. "La Junta, you're surrounded!" Marcus's voice echoed as flashbangs stunned the council's members. In tight, coordinated sweeps, extremists were disarmed, hostages freed, and the new warlord, codenamed El Alacran, was unmasked and apprehended. By 1930, the convent lay under control. The cartel's final nerve center shattered. As helicopters carried prisoners away, Marcus surveyed the ancient stones bathed in starlight. "Ironwood's war is done," he whispered to Shadow. "Let them hear that echo for a lifetime." Marcus drove along his gravel driveway as the first rays of the new dawn lit the rolling fields of Ironwood Valley. The battle-scarred landscape, still bearing the burnt stumps of ambushed vehicles and collapsed barns, now glimmered in gold. Local volunteers had spent the night rebuilding fences, clearing debris, and placing new surveillance posts at every approach. In the passenger seat, Shadow's ears perked at every rustle in the underbrush. The town below gathered in the main square. Farmers, teachers, shopkeepers, all united in hushed reverence for the veterans who had defended their home. For the first time in months, Marcus felt a flicker of peace, yet he knew the war's final echoes still lingered in whispers among the hills, silent threats waiting for cracks to widen. By mid-morning, Marcus convened a council on the sturdy porch of his farmhouse, now bristling with comms arrays, solar panels, and reinforced watchtowers. Local leaders, including Sheriff Cooper, Agent Jennings, tribal elders, and school principal Marisol Peña, took their seats atop hay bales. Each recounted the lingering vulnerabilities, unmapped mountain passes, sleeper agents embedded among seasonal laborers, and rising threats of insurgent propaganda concerts. Riley displayed a color-coded map of every safe house taken down and the current sweep status of splinter cells. Chen demonstrated remote detonation protocols for community engineers, while Vega outlined first responder drills adapted for rural terrain. Marcus listened intently, then stood to address them all. "Our greatest strength," he began, "is unity. Ironwood's future depends on every citizen who watches, learns, and acts." Over the next week, Ironwood Valley transformed into a model of integrated civic defense. Under Marcus's guidance, Sykes established the Highland Observatory atop Red Rock Ridge, a 24/7 lookout station manned by volunteer scouts. Riley's team installed encrypted mesh radios across every farmhouse, enabling instant alerts for suspicious activity. Chen led workshops on improvised fortifications, burlap sandbags, tractor barricades, and automated sentry systems adapted from drone parts. Vega turned his clinic into a dual-purpose trauma center and training lab, teaching civilians how to stabilize gunshot wounds and chemical exposures. Sheriff Cooper formalized the Community Watch as an auxiliary force under official badge, while Principal Peña spearheaded youth cadet programs that instilled observational skills and civic responsibilities. In every field, street, and schoolhouse, the citizens of Ironwood forged a silent army unbound by uniforms but united by purpose. Despite the transformation, threats lingered. Intelligence reports flagged 2 suspected sleeper agents embedded within the seasonal strawberry harvest, lamentable farmhands whose loyalty had been compromised by cartel coercion. Marcus ordered a discreet round of background checks and polygraphs, administered by Riley's mobile command unit disguised as a veterinary clinic. The tests revealed one lieutenant's son and a local mechanic as unknowing accomplices, both removed quietly from their posts. Moreover, remote sensors on the northern ridge detected nighttime drone flights, probable cartel asset drops just beyond the valley's perimeter. In response, Chen laid remote detonation decoys and adjusted drone jamming frequencies, while Sykes trained sharpshooters on thermal detection. Never complacent, the valley's guardians remained vigilant, aware that true peace would only come when the last threat was extinguished. As summer's warmth enveloped Ironwood, the valley's newfound vigilance merged seamlessly with pastoral life. Marcus joined children at the school's afternoon track meet, a modest event he once would have missed in training, and offered high fives as he passed. He watched neighbors share harvest tools across fences and heard the distant hum of rebuilt windmills powering watchtowers. Shadow sat by his side as he walked past the community's memorial wall, engraved with names of the fallen, not just veterans but farmers, deputies, and even stray soldiers who'd answered the call. In that moment, Marcus realized the true legacy of Phantom. Not the roar of gunfire, but the quiet strength of ordinary lives defended. The valley slept peacefully that night, cocooned in silence, an echo of victory and a promise of watchful tomorrows. Marcus stood at the edge of the Whispering Woods, where ancient pines leaned over narrow dirt trails like silent sentinels, Reports had come in of a cartel splinter cell using the forest's natural maze to train recruits in guerrilla tactics. Local hunters and trail guides feared stepping off the beaten path, worried the woods hid more than deer. Marcus consulted Riley's tablet. Thermal scans revealed movement beyond the tree line and issued orders to his team. Sykes would establish a hidden sniper nest overlooking the main glade. Chen and Vega would lay non-lethal traps on secondary trails. Riley would deploy acoustic sensors to triangulate voices. As Shadow slipped ahead, sniffing the undergrowth, Marcus inhaled the damp, resinous air, steeling himself for a different kind of fight. One fought not in fields or towns, but under the forest's watchful boughs. Under a canopy of dripping needles, Chen and Vega moved in tandem, positioning pressure plate alarms beneath Fern Ridge. Each trap would emit a subsonic pulse, disorienting intruders without harm. Meanwhile, Sykes scaled a moss-covered rock face, rifle cradled, eyes peeled for silhouette and thermal haze. Riley followed established game trails, planting blade-thin microphones linked to his mobile jammer. He tapped commands into his wrist console, ensuring the sensors could isolate gun clicks from bird calls. At 22:30 hours, distant laughter and Spanish murmurs drifted through the trees, signs of the cell's nighttime drills. Marcus signaled Sykes, "Live." The sniper's single round whispered through darkness, dropping a scout near a fallen log. The whispering woods answered with silence, but the hunt had begun. The forest erupted with panicked shouts as Vega's subsonic bursts pulsed through trap lines. A trio of recruits stumbled into nets, their boots snagged, faces pressed against pine needles. Chen moved in to secure them with tactical zip ties, while Riley's acoustic sensor data pinpointed the cell's command tent deeper in the glade. Marcus led a flank through narrow paths, hand on the M4's grip. Moonlight filtered through branches, illuminating dust motes that danced like embers. In the clearing, a makeshift training camp lay circled by stacked logs and camouflage netting. When Marcus kicked open the command tent's flaps, two mid-level cartel lieutenants froze, rifles half raised. Marcus's voice was cold. "On your knees." The forest held its breath as the recruits surrendered, confusion and fear in their eyes. Vega secured the detainees while Chen and Marcus swept the camp for hidden stockpiles, boxes of rifle rounds, night vision batteries, and encrypted radios. Riley dispatched remote commands to collapse the camp's cell tower with timed EMP charges, ensuring no SOS calls could slip through. As the tents burned in controlled incineration, Marcus gathered his team beneath the trees, each member's face lit by flickering embers. "The cartel will rebuild," he warned, "but tonight they learned these woods belong to Ironwood." Shadow padded through smoldering pine needles, nose twitching at the scent of survival. Marcus saluted the silent pines. A victory, but just another trial in a war without end. At dawn, local rangers and forestry officials arrived to find the clearing cleared of traps and detainees turned over to Park Service deputies. Sheriff Cooper praised the seamless coordination, while Agent Jennings cataloged confiscated gear for federal records. Back at Camp Valor, Marcus updated Riley's network map. Another note erased, but the splinter cells remained scattered like embers in a dying fire. Clocking their progress, he realized Ironwood's defenses must evolve continuously, adapting to threats in every shadow, every whisper of wind through the trees. As Shadow settled at his feet, Marcus whispered, "Rest a moment, friend." Tomorrow, the hunt resumes, under a blood-red moon. Marcus's team assembled in the dusty back streets of Tucson, Arizona, far from the farm fields they'd bled to protect. Riley's encrypted feed had pinpointed a clandestine auction house hidden beneath an abandoned warehouse, where cartel financiers planned to offload priceless Native American artifacts and seized pharmaceuticals to fund fresh insurgent cells. Disguised in tailored suits and evening gowns, Marcus and Vega entered the grand hall, Riley's portable jammer tucked beneath their robes, while Sykes and Chen melted into shadow at elevated balconies. sniper rifles concealed in violin cases. Soft lantern light danced on ornate masks and bone-etched statuettes, each promising brutal profits. Shadow, crated in Marcus's arms, quivered at the low murmur of polished voices sealing illicit deals. The silent auctioneer raised his mallet, and the final seal of corruption was about to be broken. At the auction's crescendo, a carved obsidian knife, stolen from a reservation's sacred ground, rallied a bidding war among robed cartels and crooked collectors. Marcus tapped Riley's arm. Now, Vega triggered a localized EMP grenade beneath the stage, plunging the room into flickering red emergency lights as Sykes's shots pinged iron beams overhead, sending ricochets as warnings. Chen sprang from cover, slamming down prices and crates, while Riley confiscated handheld transceivers. Panic rippled through the well-dressed thieves as Marcus danced between tables, escorting two high-ranking financiers, identified by Agent Jennings's photos, to the exits under shotgun barrel. The auction's hammer fell for the last time on the lid of a secured evidence chest. Outside, the crimson sky burned as sirens wailed down city streets. Local SWAT teams, tipped by Riley's preemptive radio burst, stormed the warehouse entrances. Vega tended to artisanal drug mule handlers and auction victims, administering first aid amid overturned display tables. Chen laid controlled charges to seal off any unmonitored back doors, while Marcus and Sykes guided handcuffed cartel lieutenants through steel-plated doors into awaiting armored cruisers. Shadow bolted free, barking at escaping mercenaries until deputies restrained her with gentle hands. By the time dawn's first lights touched the desert horizon, every stolen relic had been cataloged, every financier bound for federal indictment, and Ironwood's guardians had struck in the heart of the Southwest's illicit underworld. Back at Camp Valor, the team tallied their haul. Over 24 high-value detainees, hundreds of thousands in laundered cash, and a trove of cultural treasures returned to tribal authorities. Yet, as the sun climbed, Riley's monitors flickered with a new alert. Encrypted chatter on maritime frequencies, cartel cash destined for offshore shell companies, routed through ghost ships grazing international limits. Marcus watched the waves of the Gulf of California shimmering in heat haze on Riley's display. "They'll try to drown us in cash next," he muttered. "Then we take the fight to sea." Shadow leaned against his leg, ready for whatever horizon lay ahead, because the war for Ironwood Valley's peace was never truly over. The Gulf of California shimmered under a merciless sun as Marcus and Riley stood on the deck of the USCG cutter Vigilant, its white hull cutting through turquoise waves. Intelligence had traced a cartel cash pipeline to offshore ghost ships, rusting freighters with falsified registry, brimming with laundered bills and black market pharmaceuticals. Tonight, under a waxing moon, the Vigilant would intercept the largest mule vessel, the SS Paloma Verde. Chen and Vega checked boarding gear. Grappling hooks, night vision goggles, and breaching charges slicked with waterproof epoxy. Sykes assembled his suppressed Barrett on the cutter's bow, spotting scopes trained on the freighter's dark silhouette. Shadow rode quietly in a patrol boat's small cabin, ears pricking at the thrumming of hidden engines. Marcus keyed his mic. "Phase 1 is go." At 0200 hours, Vigilant's engines slowed to idle. The patrol boat slipped ahead into the freighter's wake. Riley's portable jammer pulsed in bursts, severing the ghost ship's satellite uplink. Lights across the SS Paloma Verde winked out, leaving only the moon's cold glare. Under that cloak of darkness, Marcus led the boarding team along telescoping ladders, clambering onto greased railings as metal groaned beneath them. A sharp clang echoed below. Sykes' single shot to port had downed the lookout, preventing alarm whistles. Chen dropped silent charges along the cargo hatch locks. Vega stood ready with hand signals. Shadows danced on corrugated steel as the hatch burst open, and the team flooded inside like phantoms. Inside the hold, stacks of sealed containers awaited processing. Marcus moved swiftly, rifle at the ready, guiding Vega to first aid zones they'd mapped for injured hostages. A dozen Filipino fishermen kidnapped to crew the ship. Chen and Riley scanned shipping manifests and encrypted hard drives, peeling off cartons stamped with foreign pharmaceutical logos. "We've got $15 million in cash," Riley whispered, tallying stacks of $100 bundles bound in plastic bands, and chemical precursors for meth labs in every state west of the Rockies. The wind's distant roar through hull vents was the only warning before AK-47 fire erupted from a guard post in the engine room. Vega shepherded the civilians down an access corridor as Marcus motioned Chen to set ambush charges. They funneled attackers into kill zones lit by muzzle flashes and red dots, each pop of rifle fire methodical and precise. By 0345 hours, the SS Paloma Verde lay secured, crew detained, illicit cargo cataloged, and the ship's encrypted black box seized. Chen rigged directional charges to disable the freighter's main engines, ensuring it drifted toward U.S. waters for full forensic inspection. Sykes provided overwatch as the patrol boat escorted hostages to safety. Riley looped the cutter's chronic jammer around the hull to prevent remote scuttling commands. On Vigilance deck, Marcus watched the dawn's glow paint the horizon gold, ships heaving gently on calm seas. Shadow emerged from the cabin, tail wagging at the sight of Marcus's triumphant grin. He slung an arm around her shoulders as federal divers readied to board, evidence crates stacked high. "Ironwood's reach is global," he murmured, eyes on the expanse. "But our mission endures. Protect the innocent, dismantle every shadow they hide in." Under the neon glow of Albuquerque's data center district, Marcus's team prepared for their most intangible assault yet, a digital raid on the cartel's cryptocurrency empire. Riley, keyboard at the ready, had traced the cartel's primary Bitcoin and Monero wallets through dozens of shell exchanges to a hidden server farm disguised as an avant-garde art gallery. Tonight, they would deploy custom malware to decrypt private keys, freeze illicit assets, and turn the cartel's own technology against them. Sykes stood guard on the mezzanine with his rifle, while Chen and Vega set fiber-optic taps on network cables. Shadow padded along the glass-paneled hall, alert to every faint heartbeat of data flowing through the wires. Chen and Riley slipped into the gallery under the guise of tech consultants invited to assess the space's climate controls. Cords snaked behind sculptures and through ventilation ducts as Riley installed a covert intrusion device, a digital lockpick coded to crack the server's custom Linux kernel. Marcus and Vega positioned themselves in adjacent exhibition rooms, arms at the ready, while Sykes covered the loading dock through a bullet-resistant mirror. When Riley's device finally lit the console with a green glow, the secure partitions fell silent. The server's blinking drives became vulnerable icons on his display, ripe for the taking. Within minutes, Riley exfiltrated the wallet files and wiped all access logs, leaving no trace of their presence. He then deployed ransomware-style scripts within the cartel's own exchange nodes, locking every account with a quantum-resistant cipher and posting a public notice on dark web boards. Assets seized for laundering human misery. Alerts pinged across cartel forums as hundreds of Bitcoin and Monero coins froze in mid-transaction. Chen and Vega loaded encrypted drives into evidence bags, while Sykes provided overwatch signals to prevent any digital reprisals from triggering remote destruction scripts. In the gallery's blackened basement, Riley wiped the intrusion device clean, smirking at the surreal poetry they'd written in code. At dawn, they delivered the seized crypto to a joint cyber task force in Denver, where CISA agents initiated emergency cold wallet transfers, effectively erasing billions in cartel liquidity. Federal prosecutors downloaded keywords and blockchain snapshots into sealed exhibits, ensuring every digital footprint tracked back to conspirators in Ironwood Valley and beyond. Riley's malware, courtesy of Ironwood's digital command, had rendered the cartel's financial lifeline inert. Marcus addressed the task force. "This is how we starve them, bit by bit, block by blockchain block." Shadow yipped in the background as evidence crates were loaded onto armored vans destined for secure storage. The dawn's light revealed a quiet victory in the unending war for justice. Back at Ironwood Valley, news of the financial strike spread like wildfire. Local banks reported suspicious account freezes tied to laundering operations, while small businesses cheered the sudden disappearance of cartel fees. Sheriff Cooper sent a secure message praising Riley's digital prowess and Marcus's leadership. Community tech volunteers, once wary of complex jargon, now volunteered to learn blockchain analytics and cybersecurity basics at Vega's clinic. In the fields, tractors hummed beside newly erected satellite arrays. Marcus surveyed the valley from his porch, Shadow resting at his side. He knew the digital front was endless, but tonight proved that ghosts could walk in cyberspace just as surely as they stalked the mountains. Marcus walked the dusty aisle of an abandoned steel mill repurposed as a clandestine safe house by an unexpected ally, the indigenous Blackfoot Network. Tribal elder Joseph Redhawk had reached out through Agent Jennings, offering intelligence and manpower to bolster Ironwood's defenses. Now, half a dozen Blackfoot scouts, steely-eyed riders draped in modern tactical gear embroidered with tribal motifs, slipped through the mill's shadowy cavern. Riley monitored encrypted satellite uplinks, ensuring no cartel drones could relay their presence. Vega set up a field medical station in a corner office once used for welding workshops, and Chen camouflaged tripwires along the loading bay's fractured concrete. Shadow trotted alongside Marcus, tail low, sensing the gravity of this new alliance. "They know these lands." Marcus nodded to Redhawk. "Now we know theirs." Under the mill's hulking roof, the indigenous scouts shared intel gathered from centuries of tracking. Old trails abandoned by logging trucks, hidden water sources, and natural choke points even the cartel's newest recruits could not navigate. Sykes and Riley pored over topographical maps illuminated by headlamps, plotting intercepts along the timbered ridges where the cartel's northbound convoys usually crept under darkness. Chen trained the scouts in precision demolitions, controlled charges that would cave in mountain passes without harming wildlife, while Vega taught trauma stabilization using both modern dressings and traditional herbal poultices drawn from sage and cedar. The mill's open interior echoed with the promise of unity, grassroots defense augmented by ancestral knowledge. That night, under a waning crescent moon, the Allied force moved out in two columns. Redhawk's cavalry, ATV-mounted scouts blending off-road agility with silent electric drives, flanked Marcus's veterans on quad bikes. Riley's mobile jammer boat, a camouflaged airboat retrofitted with pulse jammers, slid along the Timber Creek bed to cut cartel drones from the sky. Vega rode alongside tribal medics carrying ceremonial pouches that concealed tourniquets and IV kits. Chen and Sykes positioned at pre-selected kill zones, planting charges beneath log bridges and rock faces. As the convoy rumbled forward, the landscape itself, ancient pines and sculpted buttes, stood sentinel, guiding the Allies toward destiny's crossroads. Shadow led the way at the head of the column, nose to the wind. At 0230 hours, the first cartel column, 10 armored pickups loaded with reinforcements, rolled through Rainbow Pass. Chen's charges detonated in perfect sequence, collapsing entry and exit simultaneously. The snarling engines choked to silence as dust and debris choked the trail. Sykes's rifle barked from two flanking ridges, dropping engines before they could turn around. Tribal marksmen leapt from ATVs, delivering non-lethal net gunners that ensnared disoriented drivers. Vega and tribal medics raced down to tend any wounded. Both cartel foot soldiers and frightened civilians coerced into service. Riley's jamming pulses prevented any distress calls, while Marcus emerged onto the flattened trail, rifle trained but voice steady. "On your knees. Valley rules apply here." In the eerie dawn light, Redhawk approached the bound prisoners, offering a brief prayer in Blackfoot, honoring lives taken under forced duty. Marcus and Agent Jennings took custody of the cartel lieutenants, while Riley's team photographed every crate of contraband, stolen artifacts, counterfeit IDs, and satellite phones rigged with kill switches. Chen rigged the final charges to seal Rainbow Pass for 48 hours, forcing any future attacks into open ground where Allied scouts could track them. As tribal and veteran forces gathered for a silent salute, their silhouettes etched against the rising sun, Marcus felt a profound kinship. Neighboring nations might have drawn lines on maps, but here, shared land and shared purpose forged bonds stronger than any treaty. By mid-morning, the Allied force returned to Ironwood's makeshift command post at the mill. Tribal elders, federal agents, and local sheriffs convened in the cavernous hall, exchanging dossiers and sourcing maps. Sheriff Cooper, clipboard in hand, praised the operation's surgical precision, while Red Hawk emphasized that defense of the land must include respect for ancient custodians. In the flickering fluorescent light, Marcus addressed the assembly with quiet conviction. Ironwood's strength isn't just in steel or strategy, it's in unity across cultures, generations, and histories. Tonight, we proved that when descendants of the land and defenders of freedom stand together, no shadow can overtake us. Shadow padded forward, tail wagging, and the humans, soldiers and scouts, heirs of different legacies, felt the valley breathe as one. Marcus arrived at the Ironwood Community Watch Center before dawn, its exterior still disguised as the old radio station he'd purchased months ago. Inside, Vega and Riley huddled over banks of monitors displaying live feeds from thermal cameras and drone nets spanning every ridge and road. Today's mission was personal. Someone had compromised their digital defenses. Riley's logs showed a phantom hacker, nobody on their watch list, slipping through firewalls, accessing camera controls, and tampering with winterized roadblock gates. "They left a calling card," Riley muttered, pointing to single-line graffiti in the code. "El Fantasma." The message sent a chill through the room. After all their victories, an unknown adversary now lurked in their network, turning their own ghosts against them. By mid-morning, internal forensics traced the breach to a civilian volunteer named Franklin Moss, a quiet systems engineer who'd moved to Ironwood after retiring from a Fortune 500 company. Sykes and Chen quietly slipped through his front gate under the guise of routine maintenance checks. Moss greeted them with polite surprise, waving them inside a cluttered home office lined with server racks humming beneath LED lights. Chen feigned interest in the cooling fans while Sykes scanned Moss's movements through a cracked window. Inside, Riley's audio bugs picked up hurried keystrokes and the soft click of remote command scripts. When Moss turned, eyes darting, Sykes' suppressed round smashed the glass of his laptop screen, an unspoken threat that froze him in place. Under Marcus's calm yet commanding presence, Moss confessed. Cartel operatives had threatened his family in Texas, coerced him into planting malware that looped camera feeds and unlocked sealed gates at night. The irony struck Marcus like a blow. Moss's betrayal stemmed not from greed, but fear. Vega knelt beside Moss, wrapping his wrists with zip ties and murmuring reassurance that his cooperation could save his kin. Marcus stood, fists clenched, and laid out the plan. Moss would lead the team through the back doors he'd built, showing them every hidden script, every covert port, before they locked him in protective custody. His expertise would now safeguard the valley he'd tried to destroy. That evening, under Moss's reluctant guidance, the team launched a reverse hack. Riley injected countercodes that traced the cartel's remote command servers to a data center in Ciudad Obregón. Sykes perched on the radio tower's skeletal catwalk, scanning the horizon for drone echoes as Riley's malware traced each packet. In a single cascade of commands, they seized control of Moss's back doors, reprogrammed his own scripts to quarantine the gateway, and redirected any future intrusions into a digital honeypot. As the last phantom branch of the malware died, the center's monitors blinked green across the board. Ironwood's network was secure again, but the memory of betrayal lingered like a shadow. Late that night, Marcus stood alone on the station's porch, shadow at his feet. The valley lay silent under a tapestry of stars, each ridge a dark sentinel. He considered Moss's words. "They know I love this place, and they know how to hurt me." In that realization, Marcus saw the cartel's final weapon, exploiting human vulnerability, turning protectors into threats. He looked out toward the illuminated watchtowers, knowing vigilance meant more than guns and fences. It meant guarding hearts and minds. He whispered into the chill air, "Ironwood endures," even as a distant humming drone betrayed that the battle for souls had only just begun. The moon hung low over Cold Springs Canyon, its pale light glinting off the frost-coated pines. Marcus huddled with his team atop the rim overlooking the narrow defile, a known ambush point for cartel supply convoys moving through rugged terrain under cover of darkness. Riley's tablet traced a battered cargo truck en route, with caches of forged passports and foreign currency bound for sleeper cells. Tonight, they would bottle the canyon, turning its rocky walls into gauntlets. Sykes and Chen crept to 2 pre-selected sniper nests, setting up high-powered rifles and spotting scopes amid twisted roots. Vega and local deputies prepared med stations on the lower ledge, anticipating casualties. Shadow paced behind them, every muscle taut with anticipation. Marcus keyed the comm. "Hold until the lead Humvee enters the kill zone. We strike then." 2 hours later, headlights carved bright slashes through the canyon's darkness as the cartel convoy, a Humvee, 2 pickups, and the targeted cargo truck, rolled into position. Riley's jamming matrix pulsed in low-frequency bursts, choking off drone and radio traffic. As the lead Humvee passed beneath Chen's position, he triggered a line of satchel charges, collapsing a crumbling rockfall onto the vehicle's chassis. Metal shrieked and glass shattered. Engines coughed as the truck ground to a halt. Simultaneously, Sykes' suppressed rounds rang out, puncturing engine blocks and pinning down armed guards. The canyon walls echoed with the roar of controlled demolition and precise gunfire. Marcus led the charge down the slopes, rifle at ready, as Vega and deputies secured wounded cartel drivers and extracted the cargo manifest from the abandoned truck. Amid the swirling dust, the convoy's remaining drivers bolted for tree lines, only to find themselves funneled by Chen's secondary blasts into Vega's medical perimeter. There, bandaged but cuffed, they were processed by deputies while Marcus returned to the wrecked truck. He pried open the rear hatch to reveal pallets of unmarked passports stamped with every U.S. state, stacks of $100 bills bound in rubber bands, and crude detonator kits. "Supply line cut," he broadcast, voice calm. Riley's jammer surged in a final burst, frying any hidden transmitters. As the cartel's would-be suppliers realized their mistake, they sank to their knees in the snow-dusted canyon floor, victims of the valley's unseen trap. By pre-dawn's first light, federal ATF and ICE teams swept in to collect the evidence and prisoners. Sykes covered the skirts of the canyon with thermal scans, ensuring no fugitives slipped away. Vega treated minor frostbite among deputies, while Chen supervised the safe detonation of unexploded charges. Marcus surveyed the scene from the canyon rim, breath forming pale clouds. Below, deputies loaded the cargo onto armored trucks for transport to federal processing centers. The canyon, once a silent artery of illicit movement, now lay severed. Shadow leapt to his side, tongue lolling as if in triumph. Marcus placed a hand on her shoulder. "Cold Spring stands protected," he whispered. "Let them find no road here." At base camp that afternoon, Marcus tallied the haul. Over $2 million in seized cash, 50,000 forged passports, and enough explosive materials to threaten half a dozen rural communities. Riley uploaded forensic logs to DOJ servers. Sykes cleaned his rifle stands. Chen recalibrated demolition gear for upcoming operations. Vega resupplied medkits in preparation for the next front. Yet as they packed up, Riley's monitor chirped with a fresh alert. A cartel-backed cyber campaign aimed at redirecting satellite internet in Ironwood Valley, potentially blinding their drone network. Marcus exhaled, gaze drifting over snow-capped peaks. "They adapt. We adapt harder." Shadow barked softly, echoing the vow. The canyon's defense was only the next chapter, an unending siege where every pass and pixel mattered. Marcus arrived at the newly fortified Redwood Communications Hub just before dawn, the latest bastion in Ironwood Valley's multi-layered defense network. The hub, once an old grain silo retrofitted with satellite dishes and signal amplifiers, now bristled with antenna arrays and armored guard posts. Riley sat before a bank of terminals, tapping furiously as lines of code scrolled across multiple screens. "They're launching a coordinated cyberkinetic assault," he said without looking up. "Cartel-backed hackers breached our solar-powered backup arrays, and they've jammed 2/3 of our satellite uplinks." Vega helped local IT volunteers rewire power conduits, while Chen and Sykes coordinated perimeter patrols beyond the razor wire fences. Shadow padded at Marcus's heels, nose to the wind, as the first pulses of the cartel's disruption echoed through fractured data streams. Riley gestured to a 3D network map tracing the jammer's source to 3 hillside relay stations, one atop Red Rock Ridge, another hidden in the Whispering Woods, and a newly erected tower near Cold Springs Pass. "If we lose Redwood, the valley goes dark," he warned. Marcus nodded, eyes steely. "Then we take back every node. We split. Riley and Vega hold here. Sykes and Chen hit Station Alpha. I lead the team to Station Bravo. Shadow, you're with me." The plan was bold. Simultaneous kinetic raids to retake the physical towers, while Riley rolled out emergency fallback comm protocols from underground caches. Vega prepared medkits and field dressings, anticipating both digital and physical injuries. By 0200 hours, the 2 assault teams deployed under Riley's jamming umbrella. Marcus's group, himself, Shadow, and 3 local deputies, slid through the sagebrush toward the hidden tower in Cold Springs Pass. Radio silence reigned. Only the distant hum of ghostly drones broke the night's calm. Sykes' team parachuted from a Black Hawk onto Red Rock Ridge, moving like shadows through pine silhouettes to breach the relay's fortified container. In the Whispering Woods, Chen and a cohort of Blackfoot scouts silently compressed spring-loaded gates to block reinforcements. Everywhere the cartel's handlers had planted electronic sentries, Marcus's veterans dismantled them with wire cutters and EMP grenades. At Station Alpha on Red Rock Ridge, Sykes set charges on the generator housing while 2 sniper teams watched for enemy reinforcements. The cartel's mercenary garrison inside fired infrared beams into the tree line, signaling Marcus's team to move faster. Within seconds, the generator exploded in a muffled roar, sending the relay's satellite dish tumbling earthward. Riley's remote scripts immediately rerouted traffic through underground LoRaWAN tunnels, restoring 30% of critical uplinks. Bravo's team arrived moments later at the Whispering Woods relay, where Chen's nets had already ensnared 2 cartel sentries staggering into booby traps. Marcus pressed a cold-gloved hand to the tower's door panel and knelt to override the lock with a portable hacking module. Sparks danced as the last lines of malicious code were purged, and the dish roared back to life under his command. Back at Redwood, Riley guided reconnections through patched firmware, each click of his keyboard a strike against the cartel's digital onslaught. Vega, eyes flicking between monitors and the surgical lamp above him, treated a scorched volunteer who'd been caught in an electrical surge during the initial breach. "We're stable," Vega called over the din. "Reinforcements inbound in 20. Marcus's voice crackled over the secured comms. "Sites Alpha and Bravo are back online. We need Station Charlie and Whispering Woods next." By sunrise, all 3 relay stations were restored. The valley's digital arteries pulsed once more. Drone reconnaissance beamed live feeds to observation towers. Encrypted mesh radios hummed with civilian chatter, and Redwood's massive dishes pointed skyward, reclaiming frequencies stolen by cartel hackers. Marcus gathered his team at the silo's top catwalk, the golden Montana light painting long shadows across their faces. Shadow sat beside him, ears pricked toward distant hills. "They tried to blind us," Marcus said. "Instead, they showed us where we were weakest. Now we seal every gap, every back door, every shadow they hide in." As local engineers began fortifying the remaining relay sites with hardened firewalls and Faraday cages, Riley uploaded the last of the purge scripts into Ironwood's core. Chen and Sykes coordinated nightly patrols to deter any new relay emplacements. Vega trained civilian medics in electrocution response, and Sheriff Cooper authorized a permanent communications watch unit at Redwood. From the valley floor, the hum of restored networks rose in a triumphant chorus, a testament that Ironwood Valley's guardians could defend not only land and lives, but the invisible signals that bound them together. Marcus studied the aerial reconnaissance images of Sierra Vista Estate, an opulent villa perched atop sandstone cliffs overlooking El Paso. Cartel scouts had seized the governor's daughter, Isabel Morales, during a charity gala held in the estate's cavernous ballroom. Intelligence pinpointed her cell in the villa's west wing, guarded by former military contractors with thermal armor and night vision optics. At 2300 hours, under a crescent moon, Marcus would lead the rescue. Vega handed out compact trauma kits. Riley calibrated a mine detection drone. Sykes slung his suppressed Barrett rifle. Chen loaded shape charges into damp satchel packs. Shadow, outfitted with an LED tracker harness, lay at his feet, tail thumping in anticipation. "We go in quiet," Marcus whispered. "Precision, speed, zero collateral." At 23:15, the team slipped through thickets below the estate's eastern garden, vines and cacti concealing their approach. Riley's jammer pulse muted the villa's perimeter cameras for 60 seconds, enough for Chen and Marcus to scale the outer wall with microspikes. Sykes took overwatch from a dovecote turret. Rifle rested on folded arms, eyes locked on windows below. Vega and Riley moved to the service entrance, deploying a handheld EMP device that plunged the corridor's emergency lights into darkness. A lone sentry froze mid-step, his flashlight beam slicing through the gloom. Chen's garrote silenced him before his radio keyed a warning. Inside, marble floors reflected the faint glow of emergency red lanterns, and the scent of lavender from ornamental pots filled the air. Guided by Riley's infrared feed, Marcus led the dash toward the West Wing's security door. Two guards with assault rifles stood before its reinforced frame. At Marcus's cue, Sykes's rifle cracked twice from the turret, rounds tearing through layered armor, felling both guards simultaneously. Vega ushered Marcus forward as Chen wired the door's hinges with silent micro-charges. The lock snapped off with a muted click. They slipped inside. The corridor beyond was carpeted in plush burgundy, lined with portraits of past governors. At the far end, through a peephole, they saw Isabel, bound to a chaise longue, her eyes wide with fear. A hulking mercenary paced outside. Marcus signaled Vega to breach. Chen's charges detonated in a muted thud that split marble and steel. The door collapsed inward. Marcus kicked off the remnants and burst in, rifle raised. The mercenary's eyes met his for a heartbeat. Then Marcus's finger tightened on the trigger. One suppressed shot, and the thug slumped. Isabel scrambled free as Vega cut her bonds. "Miss Morales?" Marcus's voice was steady. She nodded, tears streaking mascara. Riley's jammer blocked any remote alarms as Chen swept the hall for secondary threats. Within 60 seconds, the rescue was complete. Isabel wrapped her arms around Vega, sobbing relief, while Marcus kept watch toward the corridor's exit. The exfiltration plan called for vehicles disguised as catering vans to ferry them to a secured helicopter landing zone on the estate's north lawn. But as they reached the service exit, Vega subdued a third guard, an AK-47 sniper whose night vision had tracked their infrared glow. Chen disarmed him amid a hail of muted shouts from patrolling contractors converging on the alarm's echo. Riley flung smoke canisters into the corridor, turning the hall into a swirling gray veil. Marcus guided Isabel through the smoke, Shadow at her side as if she sensed the danger. Outside, the gala's music still droned, oblivious to the night's true spectacle. The helicopter's rotors thundered as it descended toward the lawn, blades shearing moonlight into shards. Marcus oversaw Isabel's seatbelt click, then vaulted aboard with Chen. Vega and Sykes provided cover fire as Riley jammed the estate's remaining alarm loops. The team clambered in just as armored contractors burst onto the lawn, weapons poised to fire. Updrafts whipped their coveralls as the chopper lifted, Polaris searchlights below painting the jetsam of security guards scrambling in the grass. Sykes' rifle barked from above, one round to each weapon lock, rendering them useless. The chopper banked east, ferrying their precious cargo toward the safety of Camp Valor. By 1450 hours, Isabel Morales was debriefed and reunited with her tearful father, the governor, aboard Air Force One bound for Washington. Federal agents processed evidence from the villa, voice recordings, GPS trackers, and 5 bound contractors. Back at Camp Valor, Marcus's team debriefed in the basement command center. Success with 0 civilian harm. Every contractor accounted for. Shadow lay by Marcus's side, tongue lolling as he slipped off his gloves. He patted her head, voice soft. Tonight, ghosts saved a life. Outside, the desert stars shone clearer, an unspoken. Marcus stepped off the Black Hawk onto the cracked tarmac of Desert Shield airstrip, the midday sun baking the salt flats surrounding the abandoned military base. Intelligence had identified this derelict runway as the site of a secret cartel-backed militia training camp, Los Escorpiones, where mercenaries and rogue ex-soldiers honed urban warfare tactics before deploying into border towns. Riley's drone feed had mapped out guard rotations and training zones, mock city blocks built from shipping containers, sniper nests in repurposed control towers, and firing ranges stocked with stolen weapons. In the distance, plumes of dust rose as Humvees practiced convoys. Vega distributed desert-rated medkits, while Chen prepped breaching charges laced with incendiary caps. Sykes calibrated his .50 Cal HD rifle for long-range overwatch, the barrel shimmering in heat waves. Shadow, outfitted with a desert cam harness, nosed at the dusty ground. "This is where we end it," Marcus intoned. "Stay sharp." At 1800 hours, Riley initiated a localized EMP burst from a concealed van parked 20 yards off runway, plunging the training camp's electrical grid into darkness. Guard towers went silent. Floodlights died with a hiss. Under that shadow, Chen and Marcus led a team across the tarmac's cracked surface, guns raised and muzzle lights off. Vega and 2 local deputies fanned out to secure the perimeter, while Sykes took position atop a derelict radar tower, rifle trained on the main courtyard. Smoke grenades deployed by Riley drifted across shipping container alleys, masking the assault's approach. As command vehicle headlights blinked to life, riot gear-clad mercenaries stumbled into Marcus's kill zone. One short burst of suppressed fire from Chen's MP5 felled the lead driver, and the convoy's momentum stalled. The training grounds erupted in chaos under Marcus's swift orders. "Sweep containers. Secure rooftop routes." Vega sprinted toward the firing range, where recruits clustered around automatic weapon racks. He planted rapid-fire stun charges that sent non-lethal shockwaves across the gravel pads, dropping trainees in a throbbing daze. Meanwhile, Chen breached container doors with silent cutters, disarming hidden IEDs and confiscating bootlegged urban warfare manuals. Marcus darted between stacked crates, rifle ready, as shadowed silhouettes armed with AK-47s tried to rally. Sykes' rifle barked from above, precision taking each threat at 200 yards. Dust motes danced in tracer streams, painting a surreal tableau of modern war folded into a derelict desert airstrip. In the camp's command container, a fortified steel box reinforced with ballistic siding, Riley located the militia's encrypted comm node. Marcus kicked open the hatch as Chen's charges ripped through the perimeter hatch. Inside, ragged maps pinpointing sleeper cells across the southwest lay strewn across metal tables. A hot laptop glowed with live Skype sessions of cartel lieutenants coordinating arms drops in multiple states. "Jack this feed," Marcus ordered. Riley jammed the node while Vega ushered disoriented hostages, local mechanics and farmhands conscripted into service, toward makeshift medical triage. Chen planted time charges on the comm node cables, ensuring remote detonation would collapse the container's roof in one final conclusive strike. As the sunset's final rays faded, controlled demolitions boomed across the runway. Cargo containers collapsed into twisted steel mazes. Guard towers crumpled into concrete rubble. Sykes's final shot snapped off the engine block of the last Humvee, stranding its driver in the dust. Local SWAT teams, pre-positioned on the east perimeter, swarmed into the base to secure detained mercenaries, while federal agents recovered maps and laptops. Marcus and his team regrouped by the airstrip's control tower, surveying the smoldering remains of Los Escorpiones training ground. Shadow padded through the debris, nose twitching at the ashes of conflict. "The desert lies safe tonight," Marcus murmured. "Let every shadow know. Ironwood Valley's guardians can reach any horizon." Under a low-hanging moon, Marcus convened his team at the Valmont Agricultural Airstrip, an unassuming ribbon of tarmac shadowed by silos and hangars. Recent intercepts from Riley's drone network had revealed a sinister plot. Cartel contracted crop duster planes, retrofitted to spray organophosphate nerve agents over Ironwood Valley's fields, poised to unleash a chemical apocalypse at first light. Tonight, the team would neutralize both the aircraft and the clandestine processing plant, hidden beneath the old grain elevator. Riley's laptop displayed real-time flight vectors. Sykes prepped his long-range .50 cal to disable engines. Chen and Vega inspected portable breathing apparatus and non-lethal decontamination gear. Local deputies stood by with riot shields. Shadow paced at Marcus's side, ears pricked for the distant drone of propellers. "We stop the rain," Marcus said quietly, "or we drown in it." At 0230 hours, Riley activated a localized EMP pulse across the airstrip's perimeter lights, plunging the hangars into inky darkness. Simultaneously, Chen and Marcus slipped along the hangar walls, rifles held tight, boots silent on cracked concrete. Inside Hangar B, two modified air tractor AT-802s stood ready, their spray booms dripping viscous yellow fluid into makeshift tanks. A lone mechanic hunched over gauges, oblivious to the night's threat. Sykes's single suppressed shot shattered the hangar's south-facing window, distracting the mechanic and sending him scrambling. With coordinated precision, Chen tossed a flashbang into the cockpit of the nearest plane and kicked the door. Light exploded in the pilot's eyes as Marcus moved in, rifle raised. Within seconds, both pilots were subdued, their flight suits soaked in the toxin they'd meant to deploy. While Vega and local deputies secured the airstrip perimeter, Marcus and Chen raced toward the grain elevator's service entrance. Riley guided them via thermal overlay, marking guard patrols camouflaged among stacked crates. The ancient elevator's interior reeked of dust and corn, but beneath its loading docks lay the cartel's clandestine lab. Rows of mixing vats, drums of precursor chemicals, and an industrial spray pump wired to the plane's booms. Vega donned a respirator and led the team past oozing vats, tagging critical valves with freeze charges supplied by Chen. "We can't let them dump this into our soil," Vega warned, voice muffled by the mask. Marcus planted the first charge on the main feed line, then pressed a remote detonator. A muted boom echoed through the cavernous space. The mixing tanks ruptured, flooding the concrete floor with inert dye that instantly neutralized traces of nerve agent. Outside, Sykes's thermal scope tracked movement atop the silo roof. Two armed contractors attempting to radio for backup. A single round from his Barrett .50 tore through the corrugated steel, sending shockwaves that rattled the hangar doors. Riley's jammer silenced the contractors' radios even as deputies swarmed to secure them. Amid the chaos, Marcus rejoined Vega at the ruined mixing vats. "Labs down," Marcus reported. "Airstrips clear." Chen signaled from the hangar, where both crop dusters lay disabled and their pilots bound. Riley directed deputies to collect vials of the diluted chemical for forensic analysis, ensuring every drop could be traced back to cartel masterminds. By 0500 hours, local fire crews arrived to wash the hangar floors and ventilate the lab's fumes. ATF hazardous material teams logged the destroyed equipment. Marcus summoned the team to the airstrip's threshold, dawn's first light painting the plane's twisted spray booms in amber. Shadow sat alert at his feet as the sun broke over the mountains, fields of wheat and barley stretching unspoiled to the horizon. "They sought to bleach our fields with poison," Marcus said, voice carrying across the tarmac. "They found instead our resolve." Riley uploaded incident logs to federal chemical warfare investigators. Vega cataloged the neutralized agents and updated first response protocols. Sykes cleaned his rifle's barrel. Chen packed away his charges for the next mission. As the sky brightened, civilian farmers and tractors rolled onto the airstrip for a community open day, curious about the squad's nighttime operations. Sheriff Cooper handed Marcus a folded flag stitched with Ironwood's emblem, its stars still bright in the morning chill. "We've earned another dawn," Marcus replied, slipping the flag into his pocket. Shadow gave a soft bark, tail wagging in greeting as a local couple approached to thank them for saving their harvest. The valley's fields, its lifeblood, remained whole. From the highest silos to the wheat-lined horizon, Ironwood Valley stood untainted, guarded by veterans and neighbors alike. And as long as ghosts like Marcus and Shadow patrolled its edges, no storm, chemical or otherwise, could ever wash its heart away. Marcus convened his team before the steel-clad doors of Hartley & Voss Financial Services, a high-rise bank in downtown Denver, quietly funneling cartel funds through complex shell accounts. Riley's laptop projected a labyrinthine flowchart, millions in laundered dollars passing through dozens of offshore trusts before re-entering legitimate markets. Vega inspected non-lethal restraint gear while Chen primed explosive seals for vault hinges. Sykes calibrated his suppressed sidearm for close-quarters precision. Shadow sat in the shuttered alley below, ears alert to each distant siren. Marcus laid out the heist. "We breach at 0100 hours under the cover of a planned power outage. Riley will cut security feeds. Chen and I hit the primary vault. Vega handles hostages. Sykes covers our exit. We extract the master ledger, every name, every cent, then let federal agents follow the money." The team's nods were grim. Tonight, they would strike at the cartel's financial heart. At 011:15 hours, the city's grid flickered as Riley's remote EMP pulse blacked out 2 city blocks surrounding the bank. Emergency generators hummed to life, but Riley's suppression script looped security camera feeds in a static lullaby. Marcus and Chen descended into the service tunnel below the building, scaled a maintenance hatch, and slithered into the sub-basement. Sykes climbed fire escape ladders to the penthouse level, rifle tracking any rooftop drones. Vega and 2 deputies entered through the darkened lobby as maintenance contractors, rifles concealed in tool crates. Elevator shafts and corridor lights remained on, masking their presence. Inside the vault corridor, the air smelled of ozone and polished marble. Chen affixed timed charges to the vault door's hydraulic locks as Marcus prepared to breach. Every second measured against the ticking of Riley's countdown timer on his wrist console. The vault door shuddered and fell inward under Chen's controlled charges, revealing rows of safety deposit boxes and the central master ledger secured in a tempered glass case. Marcus shattered the glass with a single precise shot, snatching the ledger as Vega restrained 2 armed security guards shouting in alarm. Alarms roared as the emergency lights switched to red. Riley's jamming continued, but only for another 30 seconds. Sykes' suppressed shots pinged steel barriers on the rooftop, deterring drone operators attempting to triangulate their location. Through smoke and echoing klaxons, Marcus guided Vega and the hostages down the marble stairwell while Chen secured the ledger in a blast-proof satchel. Riley ushered the last deputy into the service elevator before overriding its controls to send it to the basement. They slipped out as the vault's auto-lock engaged, sealing in any potential pursuit. Bursting into the alley, the team regrouped under a plume of urban haze. Shadow barked once, guiding Marcus toward two unmarked vans idling behind dumpsters. Sykes dropped from a second-story fire escape onto the sidewalk, covering their flank as Chen keyed the off-road ignition. Riley connected to the bank's public Wi-Fi node, triggering a remote firewall kill switch that stranded all security communications networks for hours. Vega released the hostages, bank employees and corporate auditors, handing them to local SWAT teams converging on the scene. Sirens wailed from every direction, but the team slipped away through the city's underbelly of service tunnels and freight yards. By the time daylight broke, they had vanished, leaving behind a crippled financial nexus and a trove of evidence that would unravel the cartel's global money laundering. Back at Camp Valor's command center, federal agents from the DOJ and IRS combed through the master ledger under bright halogen lamps, names, dates, amounts, and offshore account numbers that mapped every major cartel transaction. Sheriff Cooper congratulated the team over secure video link. "You've cut off their lifeblood." Vega updated medical supplies and began trauma debriefings for the rescued hostages. Riley encrypted and backed up the ledger files to impervious drives. Chen cataloged explosive residue for forensic attribution. Sykes performed a midnight rifle check. Marcus stood beside Shadow on the veranda, watching the valley's lights twinkle below. "Tonight," he said softly, "we bled the beast dry, one ledger at a time." Shadow nudged his hand, and together they gazed toward the horizon, knowing the cartel's empire of shadows had just lost its greatest asset: secrecy. Marcus crept along the abandoned stretch of U.S. Route 191, known locally as the Ghost Road, where cartels had once ambushed supply convoys. Tonight, intelligence from Riley's signal intercepts pointed to a shipment of high-explosive RDX hidden in weathered culverts beneath the asphalt, destined for an attack on the valley's main water pumping station. Under a moonless sky, the road lay silent save for the soft hiss of tire treads on gravel as Marcus's team assembled around their unmarked Humvees. Vega fitted his medkit, adding cyanokit vials in anticipation of chemical threats. Chen checked C4 charges disguised as road flares. Sykes hoisted his Barrett .50 into the passenger seat, spotting scope affixed. Riley calibrated a moving jammer drone. Shadow nosed at the passage's concrete barriers, alert to every distant echo. Marcus tapped his mic. "Deploy." As the Humvee headlights swept the roadside, Riley launched the drone, a black quadcopter humming low to jam remote triggers for buried ordnance. 6 minutes in, its thermal camera picked up two parked semis with Sylvester Agri logos, but Riley's analysis flagged fresh weld seams on the undercarriages. "There," he said. Marcus and Chen slid from the vehicle, rifles slung and suppressed, stepping into the night. Vega and two deputies formed a perimeter 20 yards down, flashlights off, ready to aid survivors. Sykes reversed the tailgate's door, establishing overwatch on the highway's opening where backups might approach. Shadow padded alongside Marcus and Chen, her acute hearing chasing the soft crunch of gravel beneath unseen feet. Under Cairo's starfield, Marcus and Chen crouched at the culvert's mouth. Rusted bars covered the intake. Chen pried them free with a crowbar as Marcus swept the dark interior with his M4's tactical light. He froze. Rows of white plastic jugs lined the underside of the roadway, each stamped RDX in red. Chen's jaw clenched. A single misplaced step could set them off. "Slow," Marcus whispered. They eased around the jugs, snagging high-visibility tape to mark each container. Simultaneously, Riley's drone circled overhead, feeding live thermal data. A squad of cartel cleaners on foot, 200 yards south, approaching stealthily to check their cargo. Chen signaled the others as Riley switched the drone to deliver a timed EMP burst directly above the culvert, disabling any electronic detonators concealed within. Beneath them, Marcus affixed microcharges to each jug, wiring them to detonate in a controlled burn at dawn. neutralizing the explosive threat without fragmentation. Vega cracked on a chem mix neutralizer to spray the RDX residues once the charges set them alight, an added safeguard against soil contamination. Sykes trained his rifle on the approaching figures, ready to interdict. As the cartel operatives neared, Riley's jammer cut radio comms, throwing them into disarray. Sykes squeezed the trigger. 2 precise shots rang out, felling the point men before they could react. Marcus and Chen moved with uncanny speed, subduing the remaining 4 in under 30 seconds. Vega cuffed them as deputies secured rifles and night vision goggles from fallen bodies. Shadow barked once, tail wagging at the captured men. With the culvert's cargo marked and the prisoners bound, Marcus gave the order, "Withdraw to safety." The team retraced their steps across the gravel shoulder just as the microcharges ignited in a controlled sequence. Beneath the road, the jugs burned with a low, sustained flame, consuming the RDX without explosive force and melting steel barrels into molten pools. A distant rumble of awakened wildlife echoed as the Ghost Road's underpass became a silent furnace. Back at Camp Valor before 0500 hours, Riley uploaded the GPS-tagged neutralization data to federal bomb squads. Vega disposed of chem-neutralized residues in hazmat containers. Sykes stashed his rifle in the armory. Chen restocked C4 flares. Marcus stood on the veranda, coffee steaming in hand, as Shadow nudged his leg. The valley stretched below in pre-dawn calm, farms and ranches waiting quietly. "They thought they'd wash us away," Marcus murmured, voice carried on the cool air. "Instead, we turned their storm into dust." Marcus and Riley stood atop the weathered bluffs overlooking the Rio Grande. Binoculars focused on a convoy of unmarked white vans snaking along the Mexican side. Intelligence intercepted by Zane's communications suite indicated these vans carried cartel scouts, experts in clandestine infiltration, bound for Ironwood Valley under the cover of night. Their mission: establish sleeper cells disguised as humanitarian aid workers. Under the steel-gray dawn sky, the team prepared for a cross-border operation unprecedented in scale, to intercept, detain, and dismantle the scouts before they could breach U.S. soil. Vega checked the medkits, ensuring the triage supplies were stocked with non-lethal sedatives and anti-venoms for potential wildlife encounters. Chen ran through breaching charge protocols, his detonation pack containing both low-yield concussion mines and carbon fiber line charges for silent wall cutting. Sykes calibrated his Barrett .50 for extreme range precision, while Riley programmed the drone swarm for overwatch and jamming sweeps at 2.4 GHz for vehicle comms. Shadow nosed at the riverbank's edge, her keen senses alert for any scent of imminent crossing. Marcus drew a breath of crisp border air. "Tonight," he said, voice firm, "we ensure no ghost crosses our threshold." At 2300 hours, under a new moon's cover, a flotilla of camouflaged flat-bottom skiffs pushed off from the Mexican bank, carrying the first wave of scouts. Riley launched the drone swarm, miniature quadcopters humming silently, each equipped with infrared cameras and jammers. From an overlook, Sykes and 2 sharpshooters watched the skiffs converge on a shallow fording point. As the scouts' boots found sand, the jammers pulsed, severing their comms. Riley's overlay map blinked red, cluster points where the scouts would regroup. Marcus led the descent down the bluff, boots silent on loose shale. Chen and Vega moved to flank the ford, while Riley's drones scattered in formation, baiting the scouts into a kill zone. The first van's headlights cut through canyon gloom as it rounded the corner on the river road. Sykes' suppressed round severed the driver's side tire. The van skidded into a shallow ravine. Marcus signaled Chen. "Containment." Chen tossed non-lethal flashbangs into the vehicle's open window, disorienting the 4-armed scouts inside. Vega darted forward to apply zip ties as Marcus disarmed their rifles. Shadow barked once, prompting the remaining scouts on shore to surrender in confusion. Riley's drones jammed any distress signals rippling through handheld radios. Under the river's echoing night, the scouts found themselves bound and bewildered. Ghosts snared before ever crossing the line. Emboldened, Marcus's team fanned out along the road's length. 2 more vans approached from upstream fords, their windows opaque. Chen and Vega planted microcharges on suspension arms, collapsing the trucks into immobilizing dents. Sykes' rifle barked in the distance, rounds disabling engines before the scouts inside could draw weapons. Riley's drones tracked fleeing scouts into the brush. Deputies concealed in ghillie suits apprehended them with steady hands and gentle warding words. By midnight, 9 scouts lay secured, 5 vans lay wrecked, and the riverbank's dead water carried no passing vessels. The valley's threshold held. At camp just past 0200 hours, the team debriefed in the repurposed river shelter. Agent Jennings joined over satellite uplink from El Paso, praising the non-lethal precision of the intercepts. Riley uploaded facial recognition images to DHS databases. Vega treated minor smoke inhalation among deputies. Chen cleared his line charges for reuse. Sykes cleaned his scope lenses before stowing them. Outside, the Rio Grande glinted silver under scattered moonlight. A silent sentinel once again. Marcus patted Shadow's flank. "No sleeper cell tonight," he said. "Let them know the border's ghosts aren't for sale." The desert dusk outside Palmdale, California, shimmered with heat as the Black Hawk inserted Marcus and his team onto a dry wash just beyond Phoenix Biodynamics, a sprawling biotech complex rumored to be the cartel's cutting-edge chemical weapons contractor. Satellite imagery patched together by Riley showed a labyrinth of reinforced greenhouses, venting chimneys spraying unidentifiable aerosols, and satellite dishes feeding ground station relays. Inside, vats of VX analogs and Novichok precursors combined under lab-grade fermenters. Tonight, Ironwood's Guardians would neutralize the lab before its deadliest harvest could be weaponized. At 21:30 hours, Riley's EMP pulse blacked out the complex's perimeter sensors and cut power to non-critical systems. The team moved like ghosts along the wash, Marcus leading with Shadow at heel, nose to the wind. Vega and Chen flanked Marcus, medkits and detonation packs slung over their shoulders. Sykes climbed into a vantage atop a decommissioned radar dish, rifle zeroed on the lab's main air intake vents. Riley scuttled through scrub with his portable jammer, severing security cameras' data links. As emergency backup lights flickered on, Marcus gave the nod. In, they breached through a service hatch onto the greenhouse roof, shards of shattered solar panels crunching underfoot. Inside, long rows of misting pipes sprayed humid air over genetically modified crops, cover for bioreactors cultivating chemical precursors. Scientists in hazmat suits darted between stations, oblivious to the silent storm. Vega and Chen planted silent charges on the vent flues. Marcus slipped along catwalks, rifle raised, scanning for guards. Sykes' suppressed Barrett round cracked once, dropping the first operator before he could sound an alarm. The charges detonated in muffled booms, sealing off ventilation and clouding the complex with inert smoke to stymie any plume detection drones. Amid the confusion, Riley hacked the facility's network, downloading blueprint files and fermentation logs onto encrypted drives while rerouting CCTV feeds into a black hole. Vega and local deputies stormed the main hall, corralling lab techs into protective custody and patching oxygen masks on them to guard against residual toxins. Chen detonated a secondary blast at the chemical storage silo, collapsing its metal frame in a controlled burn that sterilized the vats inside without releasing agents. Outside, Sykes' rifle suppressed 2 guards attempting to escape through a side door, their thermal armor rendered useless by Riley's jamming field. Marcus located the primary fermenter, a towering steel cylinder labeled Batch 47 VXP4. He affixed remote microcharges to its base, timing them for a dawn detonation that would liquefy the vessel's contents and scramble its molecular integrity. Riley slipped a cyber bomb into the facility's control servers, ensuring all fermenter logs would self-delete and impede any forensic recovery. With seconds ticking, Marcus guided Chen and Vega through a final sweep, collecting sample vials for federal labs and mapping hidden cache rooms stuffed with binary code drives and experimental notes. By 1300 hours, the team exfiltrated beneath a sky faintly tinted by pre-dawn light. The silo's microcharges detonated in a series of silent implosions, caving in the complex's core and sealing its chemical nightmare underground. Federal agents in hazmat suits moved in to secure detainees and evidence, while the team disappeared into awaiting Blackhawks. On board, Marcus exhaled, dust and sweat streaking his face. "Phoenix's ashes," he murmured to Shadow. "Let no ghost rise from these flames." Marcus and his team arrived by helicopter at the remote Avalanche Line observation post, a glacial plateau carved into the Continental Divide. Originally built for avalanche monitoring, the cabins now served as Ironwood's forward command for mountain operations. Riley set up portable satellite uplinks amid frost-crusted equipment, while Sykes and Chen stocked the cache of cold weather gear and high-caliber rifles. Vega checked hypothermia kits and insulated medpacks. Shadow padded through knee-deep snow, leaving a trail of paw prints across the white expanse. Below, satellite imagery revealed a cartel cell using abandoned mining tunnels to smuggle arms across state lines. The tunnel's hidden entrances lay beneath snowdrifts and ice flows, an icy labyrinth that required both mountaineering skill and combat readiness to navigate. Marcus gazed across the frozen peaks. "We go in under the storm," he said. "They'll never see us coming." The team set out at 0100 hours, trudging through blizzard winds that whipped their faces raw. Riley's drone, a hybrid ice-resistant hexacopter, buzzed overhead, mapping shifts in snow cover and distant heat signatures. Chen led the ground column, probing the snowpack with avalanche probes until he struck a rusted manhole cover etched with mining company logos. With hand-turned winches, they lifted the cover, revealing a narrow chute descending into darkness. Sykes mounted overwatch at the surface entrance, rifle trained on the next drift line, while Vega and Riley braced the manhole with shoring poles. Shadow, outfitted with heated vest lining, slipped down after them, nose flicking for human scent. Inside the tunnel, narrow beams of helmet lights carved through slick ice walls. The air was dank and cold, and distant echoes hinted at multiple chambers. As the team advanced, Marcus's earpiece crackled. Heat signature ahead, 30 meters. They rounded a bend to find stacked crates labeled with foreign munitions and a small squad of armed smugglers huddled around a wood-burning stove. Vega signaled non-lethal engagement. Chen tossed directional flashbangs that stunned the smugglers without setting the tunnel ablaze. Sykes' suppressed shots took out 2 sentries at the rear, preventing an alarm from rattling through the corridors. Marcus moved in, disarming the ringleader before he could reach a concealed pistol. Riley's drone feeds guided Marcus deeper into the mine, where they uncovered an array of weapons caches, rocket-propelled grenades, night vision goggles, and encrypted comms rigs. Vega and the deputies began cataloging the equipment, while Chen set timed charges at choke points to seal each tunnel branch. One misstep could collapse tons of snow overhead. But Chen's placements were precise, targeting support beams alone. As the charges detonated, shutters of ice and rock rumbled, then fell, sealing the crisscrossing tunnels into impassable crypts. Smuggler groans echoed as their hidey holes collapsed behind them. By dawn's light, filtering through the manhole, the team emerged into a snow-dusted world, made still by exhaustion and victory. Riley transmitted images of the sealed tunnels to Homeland Security engineers. Sykes stowed his Barrett rifle in heated racks. Chen packed remaining charges for future efforts. Vega treated frostbite patches while the freed detainees, local guides trapped in cartel service, thanked the team through chattering teeth. Marcus patted Shadow's head, eyes on the jagged skyline. "Let the ice guard these passages," he said. Ironwood's ghosts have claimed these heights. Under the neon glare of the Denver courthouse, Marcus and his team prepared for their most unconventional mission yet, embedding operatives on a high-stakes jury selection to overturn cartel-influenced verdicts. Riley's tablet displayed dossiers on 12 prospective jurors tainted by bribes, intimidation, or loyalty oaths to cartel front companies. Vega suited up in civilian attire with concealed medical kits. Chen rehearsed discreet breaching signals on a concealed comm. Sykes stowed a microsuppressor in his suit jacket. Riley arranged remote audio feeds routed through court stenographer equipment. Shadow waited in a nondescript sedan, eyes tracking marble columns. "This is psychological terrain," Marcus murmured. "We win by minds, not guns." At 0830 hours, Vega and Riley slipped into the jury assembly room first, posing as humanitarian volunteers, aiding seniors with mobility issues. They smiled cheerfully as jurors filed past, subtly handing out bottled water embedded with micro-transmitters. Riley's audio bugs to capture whispered cartel directives. Chen and Marcus entered next, posing as out-of-town business leaders with impeccable credentials. Marcus's eyes locked on Mr. Alvarez, a congressman's nephew rumored to accept cartel cash for favorable zoning votes. Undercover deputies flanked each exit, prepared to intervene if intimidation tactics surfaced. Sykes watched from a police van parked outside, sniper scope trained on emergency egress windows. As the jury pool was whittled, whispered alliances formed in subdued corners. Vega detected nervous glances from Clara Jensen, a 67-year-old retired registrar whose family home had been seized by cartel enforcers. Riley's earbud crackled. "She's the swing vote." Marcus arranged his answers to voir dire with careful neutrality, earning Jensen's nod. Chen, questioning the final candidate, steered the panel toward jurors untainted by vendettas. 3 would-be cartel plants, recognized by Riley's facial recognition overlay, were deftly excused for potential biases. When the 12 seated jurors included Jensen and 2 other independent thinkers, Marcus allowed himself a thin smile. Inside the courtroom, the defense team, representing a cartel shell executive, argued technicalities designed to dismiss years of smuggling evidence. As the judge prepared to charge the jury, Marcus felt the weight of months of operations. Vega discreetly passed Jensen a note of encouragement. Riley's embedded feed confirmed the cartel's lawyer gesturing furtively to her counsel. Jensen's steady demeanor under pressure was the linchpin. After 4 hours of deliberation, the jury returned guilty on all counts, dismantling the executive's claim of insufficient evidence. Within minutes, undercover deputies moved in to arrest the defense counsel on new charges of jury tampering, evidence sourced from Riley's audio bugs and Sykes's external overwatch. Media cameras flooded the hall, broadcasting the crackdown on cartel corruption. Outside, Marcus emerged to find Shadow patient at his side. The congressman's nephew, tried the next day, faced federal inquiry for accepting illicit funds. "Justice," Marcus said softly, "is its own kind of battlefield." Shadow wagged her tail as they walked away. The courthouse steps behind them cleared of cartel shadows at last. Marcus stood on the roof of the Ironwood County Airport control tower as the sun dipped behind distant peaks, casting long shadows across the runway. Intelligence from Riley's aerial recon drones had identified a squadron of modified commercial drones, each weighing over 100 pounds, suited for low-altitude arms drops. Cartel engineers had welded metal frames and mounted 3D-printed mortar tubes beneath the fuselages, turning innocuous aerial vehicles into lethal bombardiers. Tonight, Ironwood's defenders would ground them. Vega calibrated the airport's emergency response medkits for shrapnel injuries and concussive trauma. Chen and Riley rigged portable EMP launchers atop the tower's parapet. Sykes zeroed in his Barrett, and on the dusk sky, local deputies manned the perimeter lights and secured the taxiways. Shadow nosed between fuel drums, ears pricked at the distant drone hum. Marcus tapped his earpiece. Phase 1. Illumination. At precisely 2100 hours, Vega triggered the beacon lights around the runway. 4 towering halogen arrays flanked by strobe units. Their combined glare carved a broad kill box in the sky, illuminating any low-flying object within a 2-mile radius. Moments later, Riley's auditory sensors picked up the faint whine of high RPM propellers. A dozen black drones emerged from the timberline, their underslung tubes glinting like sinister talons. Phase 2, jam and blind, Marcus ordered. Chen and Riley launched synchronized EMP rockets, small directional charges that exploded in silent arcs of blue plasma above each drone's flight path. One by one, their propellers stuttered and died, sending them to plummet earthward in spiraling descents. Sights opened up on the salvage survivors, disabling rotors and airframes with precise .50 caliber rounds. Below, deputies scrambled to cordon off the crash sites while Vega raced between wreckage to secure any live ordnance. As the EMP fallout cleared the night air, the second wave bore down on the runway's center. Marcus sprinted from the tower to the tarmac's edge, dove behind a steel cargo crate, and signaled Chen to deploy the next volley of EMP grenades. The detonations rippled through the approaching swarm, severing onboard guidance systems. Riley's drones swooped in, netting drifting airframes and guiding them down with tethered cables. Sykes' rifle barked again, knocking out stabilizer fins that jolted remaining drones into uncontrollable spins. Within 15 minutes, over 20 Cartel drones lay scattered across the runway lights, some smoldering, others intact but powerless. Under Marcus's command, Chen affixed explosive seals to each fuselage, ensuring no reverse engineering. Vega tended to local fire crews, overseeing non-lethal decontamination of fuel splashes and ignited composite materials. Riley collected flight logs from charred control units, decrypting waypoint data that traced back to a hidden workshop in Tucson. By 23:30 hours, federal FAA inspectors and ATF bomb technicians arrived to survey the wreckage. Marcus briefed them on the operation's precision: 0 civilian casualties, every drone accounted for, and complete preservation of forensic evidence. Shadow trotted alongside him as Riley uploaded drone telemetry to the FBI for nationwide alerts. Sykes stored his Barrett rifle in a reinforced locker. Chen dismantled remaining EMP launcher components for redeployment. Vega restocked medkits and explosive burn suppression foam. High above the runway, the control tower's lights reflected on the shattered drone fragments, an unspoken testament to Ironwood's reach. Marcus exhaled, voice low. They thought they could rain terror from the sky. Instead, we grounded their fury. Shadow gave a soft bark, tail wagging in agreement, as distant thunder from an approaching storm rolled across the valley. Nature's own electric defense joining Ironwood's ghosts in watchful vigil. Marcus hovered at the mouth of the cavern, the chill mountain air whipping his breath into mist. Deep within the Sierra Madre Occidental lay El Corazon, the cartel's ultimate command center, an underground city of reinforced bunkers, encrypted comms hubs, and chemical weapons stockpiles. Riley's screen mapped its labyrinthine corridors in neon grid lines. Vega checked gas masks and nerve agent auto-injectors. Chen strapped high-yield breaching charges to hardened blast doors. Sykes carried 3 loaded magazines for his Barrett .50, each round capable of punching through walls. Shadow pressed against his leg, nose skimming the frozen stones. In a voice low as bedrock, Marcus whispered, "This is the kill." Stay sharp. At 0200 hours, the team infiltrated through a collapsed mine shaft Riley had identified as an unmonitored access point. Chen and Marcus rappelled down into the darkness, their ropes rattling against metal reinforcements. Vega and Riley followed, sealing the shaft behind them with remote charges to deny pursuit. Sykes posted overwatch on a ledge overlooking the central chamber, its ceiling bristling with catwalks and surveillance cameras now blind to Riley's stealth jammers. The cavern glowed with red emergency lights as sentries patrolled armored bunkers. Marcus moved like a wraith along the stone floor, M4 raised, every step measured against distant echoes. They reached the first blast door, a towering slab of steel, where Chen entered demolition codes on the control panel. Sparks danced as the locking bolts retracted. The door groaned open. Inside, rows of Cartel lieutenants clad in tactical vests shuffled crates of VX missiles destined for border towns. As flashbangs exploded in the doorway, chaos erupted, rifles cracked, boots stomped on concrete, and yells in Spanish ricocheted off stone walls. Marcus led the breach, his pistol whispering death into the darkness. Vega darted between crates, corralling technicians into a corner while Chen's charges sealed off side tunnels. Sykes' rifle barked twice, felling 2 commanders who tried to rally their men. Through the smoke-filled corridors, the team pushed deeper toward the neural comms node, El Corazon's brain. Riley hacked comm panels on the fly, looping holographic maps to buy time. Marcus kicked open the node's door to find an array of server racks humming with encrypted chatter. Cartel engineers scrambled to remove drives. Vega subdued them with shock rounds. Chen rigged the racks with breaching charges wired to ignite after extraction, ensuring no digital trace remained. As the charges armed, Riley downloaded every packet of intel: shipping routes, sleeper cell identities, bribe ledgers, and satellite uplink codes. The cave walls thrummed with the first detonations, explosive chains ripping lines of code from existence. Alarms screamed through the bunker as remote detonations shattered blast doors ahead. Secondary charges triggered by the cartel's own protocols to trap intruders. Marcus barked orders. "Fall back to extraction." They retraced their path under strobing red lights, barrels smashing into rusted pipes and showering sparks. Sykes covered the retreat from a collapsed catwalk, each suppressed shot felling guards trying to seal the exit. Vega led release technicians through winding tunnels as Riley jammed remote detonators to prevent further cave-ins. Chen collapsed the access shaft behind them with final charges, sealing El Corazon forever. They emerged blinking into the pre-dawn cold atop the Sierra Rim. The hollow roar of the collapsing bunker echoed through the mountains, a requiem for the cartel's fortress. Shadow leapt to Marcus's side as local mountain rangers guided freed hostages down a safe path. Riley's transferred the encrypted drives to waiting federal agents. Vega triaged minor injuries among the team. Chen accounted for every charge used. Sykes cleaned his rifle's barrel with methodical care. Marcus surveyed the rising sun, painting the peaks gold. "The serpent's head is cut," he declared softly. "Let its body writhe in sterile ash." Morning light filtered through the pines as Marcus stepped onto the porch of his farmhouse, Shadow padding quietly at his heels. The valley below stirred to life. Farmers checking irrigation lines, children gathering at the schoolhouse, deputies resuming their patrols along dusty roads once haunted by danger. For the first time in years, the horizon felt unbroken, a seamless ribbon of golden fields and green forests stretching beyond memory. Yet Marcus knew better than to trust peace entirely. The cartels he dismantled could splinter and resurge. New threats could emerge from the ashes of victory. Still, as he watched sunlight dance on distant mountains, he allowed himself a moment of reprieve. Here, in the heart of the land he'd sworn to protect, where ordinary people had become guardians in their own right, the legacy of Phantom endured not as a lone warrior's myth, but as a living promise woven into every heartbeat of Ironwood Valley. Inside the barn-turned command center, community leaders and veteran guardians gathered around a reclaimed oak table. Sheriff Cooper reviewed weekly patrol schedules. Principal Peña updated cadet training modules. Tribal Elder Joseph Redhawk shared insights on renewing ancestral warning signals. Riley monitored radio traffic, his screens displaying smoothly flowing data packets unmarred by jamming codes. Vega organized the next round of medical drills, weaving together modern combat care and indigenous healing traditions. Chen fielded requests for structural reinforcement blueprints, farmers eager to fortify barns and mills against any future need. Each night, civilian volunteers manned observation posts, their roles indistinguishable from their day jobs as carpenters, teachers, and ranchers. This integration of community and defense, born of necessity, had become Ironwood's greatest strength. A tapestry of collaboration that ensured no single hero, no matter how legendary, would ever stand alone again. Beyond the valley, federal agencies continued to dismantle cartel networks, armed with intelligence gathered from Marcus's final operation in the Sierra Madre. Intercepted financial ledgers, encrypted drives recovered from Phoenix Biodynamics, and the shattered remains of El Corazon had ignited investigations reaching into international corridors of power. Yet even as indictments piled up and extraditions sent cartel lords to foreign prisons, Marcus maintained a vigilant eye on the horizon. Automated drone patrols traced ridgelines, mesh network sensors tracked every vehicle crossing remote passes. Digital forensics teams alerted him to suspicious cryptocurrency flows. He and Riley developed protocols to vet every newcomer: humanitarian workers, seasonal laborers, contract engineers, to ensure no sleeper operative slipped into the valley's fold. This relentless vigilance, once a burden he bore alone, was now distributed across countless watchful eyes, each one a thread in Ironwood's unbreakable net. As the sun climbed higher, Marcus and Shadow strolled through the valley's heart, past fields now lush with spring crops and fences rebuilt stronger than ever. Farmers paused, greeting Marcus with nods of respect. Children waved from school bus windows. Deputies tipped their hats. In every gesture he saw the valley's soul, resilient, determined, alive. Shadow bounded ahead, ears alert to every rustle, reminding Marcus that the valley's safety was never guaranteed, but always fought for. He knelt beside her, his voice soft. The ghosts we once were have become the guardians they feared, and the true ghost is this valley's spirit, unseen, unyielding, eternal. As they walked toward the farmhouse, the valley held its breath in quiet gratitude, its defenders ever ready, its legacy secure in the hands of those who would never let darkness reclaim their home. In the weeks that followed, Ironwood Valley settled into a new rhythm, one defined not by fear, but by shared purpose. Marcus oversaw the dedication of a modest memorial at the valley's entrance, a steel plaque inscribed with the names of all who'd fallen: farmers, deputies, tribal scouts, and even cartel defectors who chose redemption over violence. At the unveiling, Clara Jensen stood beside Sheriff Cooper, her voice steady as she read the names by candlelight. Shadow rested at Marcus's side, leash slack, her presence a silent benediction. As dawn broke, children from Principal Peña's cadet program placed wildflowers at the memorial's base, their laughter ringing like bells across amber fields. Riley demonstrated drone piloting to local volunteers, ensuring the community could extend their watch beyond the horizon. Vega led a joint ceremony with tribal elders, blending modern first aid drills with ancestral healing rituals. Chen returned to his workshop, redesigning farm equipment with built-in security measures, while Sykes organized a marksmanship clinic at the high school shooting range. Marcus watched it all from his porch, coffee in hand, the valley's tapestry woven tighter than ever. He reflected on the journey, from lone Delta operator to community guardian, and understood that Ironwood's true legacy lay not in legendary battles, but in the quiet strength of ordinary people united under a single promise: to stand watch together forever.